welcome to another episode of Morelia Python Radio, and in this episode we have Mr. Nick Mutton returning.
Back by popular demand or by mandated court order, we're not sure yet.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I sort of haven't bothered Nick. I told him this. He thought we didn't want him on the show anymore. I was like, no, he's Nick Mutton is podcast.
I mean,
gold,
we always
man.
want Nick back, because then, we just let him. Nick, here's a topic, and then you and I can take a break for the show. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, he's been busy with the book, and I don't know. I was trying to give him some space, but I thought it was time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so welcome back. That's just like your fifth time on
Sixth
NPR.
time. I don't know. Do we give him a jacket eventually? Like,
it might be a few more than that.
Yeah. I think it might, because we've been doing this for 10 years now, and so it has to be at least. Yeah,
at least once per season.
So long ago, Owen didn't have a beard and you didn't have gray hair.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, look
I
at
was
it.
so
long ago, I might have actually had hair.
Yeah, I was so youthful and full of hope. Yeah,
my eyes work.
Thank God that got run over.
Crushed out, just been beat out of you now. So disheveled, a broken shell of an
as it should be. It's just
yes. But so how you been, man? What have you been up to over these past year and a half?
Years.
I think it's been since.
It's been over a year. Yeah, it's been a minute. Same crap as always, honestly.
Well,
behind on everything. It's like you just never. No matter what you do, it's like when you have as many snakes as I do, and maybe even you already at that point, where like. You cross some sort of threshold where it becomes impossible to have that many clean snakes at one time.
Yeah.
My baby room right now is at about 600 snakes.
Jesus.
It takes 2 days to clean them. But you can't have 600 snakes that are all clean, because by the time you get to, if you start on the left, by the time you get to snake 87, the first 3 shit in their water bowl and tipped it
knocked it over. Yeah. Shed. Yeah.
Like you're just always behind. You're just always chasing your tail.
God. How long does it take to clean 600 snakes?
2 days.
2 days. Full days. 8-hour days?
The entire adult building in a day if I really keep at it. The babies, it takes me 2 days to feed them and 2 days to clean them. So 4 out of 7 days of the week, I'm just fucking with those snakes.
Do you have a system worked out to where like you're like, every minute of your snake cleaning routine is thought out to where you're not wasting?
It's really mindless now. I've gotten into like audiobooks and stuff because I don't need, half your brain tied behind your back. Really, you're just pulling paper towels out, replacing with identical piece of paper towel, throwing away a water bowl and replacing it with a different one.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Mostly that. Like today I was cleaning right up until 5 minutes before we came on. And I'm cleaning. I have like a spotted python. Thanks, Ryan. I'm just latched onto my hand. Like, this thing's horrible. I got a pair of them because genetically they're a little bit outcross, which is hard to do with spotted pythons. And they're just vicious creatures. Not very big, but it, of course, just latches onto my finger, and I'm like, I don't have time to wait around for this thing to stop biting me. So I'm cleaning with my left hand, one-handed, other pissed off snakes, and it's just wrapped around my hand because I don't have time to stop to mess with this. I got to keep going. It'll let go eventually, and I'm just going to one-handed, left-handed style, and just keep on going. I must have like 7 or 8 snakes with just one hand, while the other one finally decided it wasn't getting anywhere with my finger.
Wow. That's how, it's like when you're training or whatever, you do things with one hand or, one leg, you just, then all of a sudden,
I've got I have to clean basically probably an average of 150 snakes a day, 7 days a week, just to stay above water, barely.
This is why Nick is like, hey, you guys want anything? You guys need anything? I'll send you a box. Like, what do you guys want? I got you. Nick's like, I'll fill the box.
Whatever you need.
That's the time of year when it's the hardest.
Yeah.
It's not always. My job is now, I would say it's stressful and difficult for a few months when everything's hatching and nobody wants to eat and they're all pissing you off and all of that. Mm-hmm. And But you get to like December, January, and I try to get more riding done because the adults are in formation, and I don't feed during the winter at all.
Yeah,
I don't know why anybody does. Why would you want to do that to yourself? Like I enjoy the fact that they're not eating and they're not shitting, and I don't have to clean hardly anything.
Yeah.
I clean my entire adult building in 90 minutes flat.
Yeah.
In January because nobody's doing anything. I'm just making sure they don't run out of water, and occasionally they'll crumple their paper up or whatever, but it's usually a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
It's glorious.
Yeah, you taught me that early on. You're like, what are you doing, man?
Yep.
Like, wait, you don't have to feed them? Not every week? What's wrong with you?
It says you're kind of screwing yourself by feeding them, really. I mean,
yeah.
It's not just the temperature cycle. There's also an annual food cycle, which coincides with the temperature cycle, and both of those things can influence folliculogenesis. So, you can get there sometimes just with a food cycle with some species. You can get there definitely with just a temperature cycle with a lot of species. But if you do both at the same time and you're kind of pulling, with both of those, you really get the best results.
I always thought with some of those Indonesian pythons, you would be able to do more of a food cycle. Just because
that's totally true. The more equatorial they are, there is just less seasonal variation. Those two competing sort of stimuli for reproduction. Temperature becomes more important and the more dominant one in the more temperate species. The farther south you get below the equator. So it's why with coastals and diamonds and brettles and these things get much more pronounced seasonal change. That's the primary driver. Food is secondary. But when you get in like Indonesia, like things like Savu pythons and macline, it's pretty much an equatorial environment. The food cycle is the more important of the two. The food cycle in the wild is influenced because you still have pronounced wet and dry seasons. The temperature doesn't change a ton. But wet and dry periods affect prey availability. So you have a seasonal sort of boom and bust as far as what there is to eat, not so much in the temperature department. But depending, you can, a lot of the lysis, the Indonesian lysis stuff, the food cycle is the more important in my estimation.
Yeah, I would wonder if you would like time that food cycle with like with us, Owen, come like in the spring or the fall when we're getting storms and fronts coming in and pressure drops and stuff like that. If that would, if you sort of time that together, if you would get some action.
I mean, maybe
do that with your teamwork.
There you go. I mean, I've just been doing the olive pythons like the carpets, but they have a food cycle and they have a little bit of a weather drop. But I mean, maybe I'll be a little bit harder on the white lips and the Timors and whatever else I got cooking around here. I don't know what the hell's downstairs. So
we all create a food cycle whether we realize we're doing it or not. My food cycle is basically the same as most people's, and here's what it is. Things lay eggs, and then oh crap, you look like you're gonna die. I better feed you a bunch.
You're good now.
They don't look quite so half dead. Then you slack off all summer long because you're just not on top of your game and you hardly feed them. And then long about September, like, oh crap, I got to put some weight on you. You're not going to lay any eggs this year. And then you start hammering with food again at the last minute.
Yep.
And then you go. But by doing that, even though it's sort of being absent-minded, really, it is this ramping up of calories in the lead into the breeding season is what you need to do. So you kind of do it accidentally.
Yeah.
Most of us do it.
So Nick, I'm curious with your food cycling, are you doing more of a size of the prey, or are you doing a frequency of the prey? Like, are you doing it every couple of days and maybe frequency? Yeah.
Digestive efficiency varies by species, but a lot of times feeding a bigger rat, you're just making a bigger turd. Honestly, it's the best examples like ball pythons. Like, what a waste! Like, just to feed them anything bigger than a weaned rat. It doesn't matter. It's like if you feed a ball python a 50-gram rat, it's going to digest 45 grams and make a 5-gram turd. If you feed a 500-gram rat, it's going to digest 45 grams and make a 455 gram turd. It's just going to go out the other end. You're spending a bunch of money to make a bigger, giant turd. It makes no sense. They do better on smaller meals because they can digest that more effectively. They'll get proportionally more out of it. They can eat bigger things, but a lot of it comes out the other side. And so
why?
Yeah, I always wondered, just because every time you see a coastal carpet, it has this huge meal in it. And maybe that's just, Maybe it's just what's available, and
That's
maybe
a bias in what photographs you see, though.
Yeah.
And they're going to eat everything they can eat. If it had eaten a sparrow, you wouldn't even see the bulge, so you wouldn't know it had eaten anything.
Right.
But the picture would be less noteworthy. But if it just ate a wallaby, you're like, holy shit! Holy crap!
Yeah, that's what
It's like it gets all over the net. It's creating the impression that they only eat giant things.
Right.
They're going to eat anything they can get around and swallow successfully. That's what they're going to eat. Right. Sometimes that's going to be something huge, and the next meal might be insultingly small. They're not going to not eat something because it's not a big meal.
Yeah.
Right.
So I tend to try not to feed giant colossal rats so much, just because it's largely a waste.
Yeah.
And I try not to let animals get really, really big. The thing with the big giant coastals, especially in captivity, is that it's the same as everything else, where people, they misinterpret information because we live in this sort of era where everybody, if it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, no one's going to take time to read it. You can make the most lengthy, well thought out, informative post on social media that anybody ever posted in the history of social media. And people are they're going to read the first sentence, the last sentence, look at the picture, and then they're going to mentally just try to guess what the middle was because they don't have time to read it, because that might take 2 minutes.
Good enough.
And anything with a nuanced anything, they're gonna take the wrong thing away from it, or not anything at all. And with like reptile sizes, I'm constantly having to. It's hard to not be kind of curmudgeonly in my old age on the issue, but you just get tired of answering the same questions that are not really even questions. Yeah. It's like, how big will this get? It's like, fuck, I don't know. How much you gonna feed it?
Yeah, it's up to you, dude.
The idea that they read some shitty old TFH book from the 1980s that said that coastal carpets can get 14 feet long. Like, what?
Yeah, why is that?
That's quite a surprise to most coastal carpets, I think.
Right, but like, why is that the thing that sticks in everybody's head? Like,
I don't know.
Like diamonds are 1,200 feet. It's like, Jesus Christ, where did you get that, and what are you doing? Yeah,
right.
They think also they conflate two unrelated or related, but not terribly related concepts. And one is adult size and record size.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
and that's just an insane thing to do. Like, it's, anacondas can get 33 feet long. It's like, no, one anaconda was measured that long. One.
Right.
One
of all of them.
Ever. One. The average adult female green anaconda, 17 feet.
Right.
And about 25% the mass of the giant one. You don't judge the giant outlier. It'd be like judging the average size of humanity by Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
That would be insane. Like,
I'm screwed.
Yeah, you're all weigh 500 pounds, so humans are huge. Like, no, that's nuts.
Yeah.
You don't judge the potential size based on the outlier.
Yeah.
The average, which is substantially smaller. And this is what kills people even with some high profile projects. And I'll talk some smack. I'll do it. But it's like, it drives me nuts. It's like, they feed the animal up to their expectation of adult size,
right,
which is almost always way too damn big.
Yeah.
This is why the Hypomelanism genus is the least bred of everything. And the reason is they're not that big. They keep reading, well, barneck scrubs can get 14 feet long. It's like, yeah, there have been definitely found some that big, but if you find one even in the wild that's 14 feet, is it a reproductively active adult? Or is it like a 75-year-old animal that hasn't bred in 30 years?
Right. It's like the water python we found in Darwin. That thing was the biggest water python I've ever freaking seen.
And it might have been 100 years
old. Right,
and
it's not breeding with shit.
It might have been the great grandpappy of all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the point with like the scrub pythons is that I've seen a lot of 14 and 15-foot scrub pythons. What I have never seen is a 15-foot scrub python on eggs. Not once. Never seen it. Seen a lot of big ones that people thought they were going to breed and never did breed. I have seen a lot of 7 and 8-foot scrub pythons on eggs.
Yeah.
I've got my Wamina clutch is getting ready to hatch any minute now. They're on day 70-something. Bred in back-to-back years. More eggs this year than last year. She is maybe 7.5 feet long, and this is her second year. She is noticeably smaller than my Brisbane coastals, like noticeably smaller.
Right.
And has now produced twice. My male is like a coastal carpet.
Wow.
smaller than my female. They're not that big, and they breed like crazy.
Yeah.
So it's not even the fact that it's difficult to breed. It's more of we're just breaking them.
Yeah.
More or less,
there is
right?
a tendency, if you try to tell people the real secrets to breeding things, they don't want to hear it.
Mm.
Right.
They want to believe in magic and fairy dust and unicorns and some
Bigfoot.
magical. There's this perception that difficult things don't breed because there's some mystical, magical recipe we just haven't figured out yet. And the answer is most often not outside of the box. It's well within the box.
Mm-hmm.
People just get back in the fucking box. This would work. They do everything. They grow with sticking with Hypomelanism. It doesn't matter whether it's a Bowen's python or a barnack or whatever. They're all scrub pythons.
Right.
And it's the same thing. They get way too big, way too fat, and don't breed. And people keep fucking with them. That's just what it is. It's like, you know why people don't breed Bowen's pythons? Because they keep trying different shit every year trying to figure out how to breed Bowen's pythons. Scrub pythons as a group are highly stressed.
Mm-hmm.
They are twitchy animals. They're nervous. So if you keep messing with them and you don't give them stable conditions, they're never going to ovulate for you. Ever. Just leave them alone. Stability. It's like, but what does everybody do with their Malaccan pythons? We'll say there's another one that's in the same boat.
Right.
Actually, it probably has even less captive breeding.
Right.
Oh, I'll try this, and that didn't work that year, so I'll do some completely different shit the next year. Oh, that didn't work. I'll try something different the next year, thinking that there's some magical combination of things, when really the combination of things is just do the same shit for 5 years and they'll lay an eggs. It's like, it's not quit stressing them out every year. The process of follicular maturation they need to get into a seasonal annual rhythm.
Right.
And if you keep moving the breeding season around, or how strong it is, you're moving the food cycle, you're messing with everything, they never get that annual rhythm established, and it never happens. It's like the secret to most of this is quit messing with your snakes. Quit stressing over it. Just leave them alone.
Take a couple
Leave
steps
them
back.
alone.
Yeah.
Leave them alone.
Yeah.
They didn't go this year. I'll just keep sticking with this, and they'll go. It's like, if you look at the people that have bred Bowen's pythons, what's the common denominator? They quit fucking with them, and they weren't very big. It's like,
Yeah. I think the only one that
tiny. They're all like 7-foot females. Those are the ones that lay eggs. The big ones don't.
Yeah.
It's like that should be.
I would say the same with white lips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're another white lips are another super high strung twitchy snake. It's like, if you're going to get this thing out and play with it every day and keep messing with what you're doing, and changing your husband, you're just like, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
white lips suck, man. They suck.
They do.
They do. I hate them. I have a bunch.
I have a bunch too. I hate them. They're just
I think that they become like the thing that everybody aspired to have.
because somebody took a picture with one outside and they're like, it's rainbow colored, and now I can't get a black face white lip to save my life. You know.
You know what else is rainbow? Rainbow boa.
I sent you an adult pair of black white lips some years ago.
That was long ago. Yeah, that was long ago.
Because I got sick with their shit.
Yeah, I know.
They're awful. They're
Yeah.
freaking dreadful snakes. Like somebody was posting about them how, the other day, and I actually chimed in. I'm like, I realize this is the thing that everybody lusts after now, but you'll be rudely awakened when you get one of these. It's not. They suck. Like I have probably 400 adult pythons, and they're my absolute least favorite to work with. They're even worse than scrub pythons because they're faster. Like they're just, oh my god! They run out of water for 15 minutes.
Dead.
They drop. They don't shed. They're terrible sheds unless the humidity's perfect.
Yep.
They're spaz out.
And what's with the hairballs?
The hairballs are
That's a
disgusting.
weird thing.
That's a weird thing. Yeah.
It's a weird thing that the ring python. There shouldn't be a Leo python. Shouldn't be a genus. They should all be Bothrochilus. All genetics studies show that they are one lineage, and that every study supports that. But they seem very reluctant to actually
Do it.
synonymize them. In that situation where they're the same, Bothrochilus is the older genus, so they would all revert to Bothrochilus. But ring pythons also cough up hairballs. They're the only pythons that do that, as the rings and the white lips. But nobody's really studied why. It's just kind of one of those, I guess I don't know. No, there's been no academic sort of research into why these obscure
random animals
cough up hairballs, and nobody else does. Interesting sort of, I don't know. They're cool, but They're not any fun.
No.
You guys actually, I almost forgot I had to do this show tonight, and I was cleaning the baby room, and I've got this baby room and grow out room, and there's 5 white lips in there, and I was getting ready to have to do the old clean and feed trick. They're so psychotic.
Here's your food.
I have to feed them very small meals only because I don't want them to grow too fast, because I have to feed them every week because I can't clean them otherwise.
Yeah.
So I distract them with a rat, and while they're killing that rat, I'm cleaning as fast as I can, and it's because they are not having it.
Yeah.
Not having it.
Yeah, that's a great trick, by the way. You know, you just feed them and then, you know, do what you have to do. Back, yeah.
You ever work with like cannon bars and stuff? It's like, well, yeah, that's the only way you're ever going to clean that cage.
Fill their mouth with something else, and then you can.
And it doesn't matter if they're captive bred or wild caught at all.
No,
doesn't matter.
No.
I have 5 white lips. I have a pair of black ones and a pair of gold ones, both of which were produced by Ryan, and I have a wild caught gold one, and they're all equally horrible.
You know, I've noticed that F1 poplin carpets. I don't know. Well, obviously we don't have. Well, maybe we've had at some point F1 carpet pythons, but the poplins are evil. They are evil. Like
I like that though because they eat good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. That's no doubt.
It's like if I wish they were a little hardier, and not that they are weak or not hardy, but if you had to rank all of the carpet python complex in their kind of durability rating, they're the weakest. Because they're equatorial. They don't experience a bunch of temperature fluctuation. It's much more temperature stable.
Right.
So they don't really. That's why they're so easy to breed. They don't need much stimulus to get the job done. And whereas like a Brussels python, if you drop the IJs, I just said IJs, Freudian slip.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, right.
Damn.
I know.
We don't say the I word on
Not
this.
anymore.
No.
Season 1. God.
Yeah, those guys, I don't know. The babies, I find them, they are snappy, but they calm down pretty quickly, and they eat really good.
Oh, yeah, yeah. 100%.
I breed, everything but imbricata, and it's nice. They're the easiest babies to get feeding. Even though they have probably the shortest captive lineage. They're the closest. I mean, even ones from wild-caught parents, doesn't matter. They just eat. It's like, awesome.
Yeah.
Some of these
they're... I guess we would have to talk about the Hypo Tigers. You posted them up. I don't know if it was today or yesterday or holy
Super
hell.
Hypo Tigers. Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm actually kind of stoked on a morph project for once.
That's weird.
I know, right? Like I don't know what it is. I hatched some good stuff this year for me anyway. I hatched some Dunn's pythons for the first time. I hatched Angolan for the first time.
Nice.
I had some other stuff in my secret pile of snakes, I guess. But I mean, I had some good stuff, but those I just keep staring at. I was like, holy crap!
Yeah.
Like, quality of striping, it's like I was just like blown away. I mean, my male Hypo Tiger is the second best one on the planet. Right. And that's Paul wasn't going to send me the best one.
Yeah.
It's like he has 2 really good ones. I'm like, you're sending me the brother. The one he's got one that's even more ridiculous, like just insane.
Yeah.
And I'm really just overjoyed at the
Jesus.
And that was to a non-striped female. But
wow, that's insane.
Tiger is quite clearly and has been for a while a polygenic trait. Paul bred the original hypo male, his original hypo male, to a tiger from Jason Balaam that I sent him like 12 years ago. Because they had tiger coastals in Europe. So I sent Paul's 12 or 13 years ago. I sent him 4 females from Jason Balaam. 1.4, and he still has all those girls, and he bred that hypo male to that, and that's where out of the very first clutch there was a bunch of hypos, a bunch of not hypos, and there was one pair of hypos that weren't striped at all, and that's the pair I got because he wasn't going to let me have the first hypo striped horn to all. Well, I wouldn't either.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
but they have a tiger mother. And even though they're not striped, I produced a female Hypo Tiger in 2019.
Right.
From breeding 2 non-striped snakes. But because they had that in their ancestry, it lined up well enough to produce one reasonably striped snake out of a whole clutch. But this year, because that tiger ancestor on the mother's side, that male Hypo Tiger, it really. I expected a lot of tiger-y stuff, but I didn't expect. There's really only one animal in there I wouldn't sell as a tiger, and even it is more striped than some of the stuff I see people selling as tigers. Like, dude, have you noticed that? Like,
Yeah.
I don't. It's like it's not like a recessive gene; it's a phenotype, and if it's not striped, it's not a tiger.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you had some tiger parentage; it's not a bloodline.
It will throw tigers, but it itself is not
Maybe,
a tiger.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to say.
Yeah.
So
it's
I got a question involving tigers. I don't know what your experience are, but Owen and I both, every time we, breed tigers of any type, right? It seems that the tail is the hardest thing to get to be striped.
The tail?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a lot of that where it's like
almost there.
And there's like a break right at the
Yes.
What?
Just a little bit further.
I've noticed that. Why that's the case, I don't know. Tiger seems to be, I mean, with polygenic traits, you don't really know how many genes you're talking about, are you? Once it's more than one or two, you really can't, if they're all doing the same thing, you can't separate out and parse out how many you're dealing with. You can kind of get a rudimentary idea if it's a few or a lot. With the hypobrettles, I don't think it's more than 4. I think it's 3 or 4. It's that small of a number based on, well, I've done stupid things like the number of babies I've raised to adult or near adult just for the sake of experimentation, you wouldn't believe. I raised a clutch of 16 Brettles pythons for 5 years, the whole clutch. Still have most of them.
Jesus.
The first time I bred a hypo to a non-hypo.
Right.
They were hypo, had stripes. I just kept all 16 of them. Eventually, at like 3 or 4 years, I sent a group of some of them as at a nearly adult size to Paul in Europe. But I still have the rest of them. So I could see what they look like as babies and what these diluted hypos, what they aged out and looked like. And if I would have sold them as babies or as 6-month-old snakes, I would have completely drawn the wrong conclusion. Holding them back that whole time, you kind of see, and then breeding their offspring in another generation on the road and seeing how those turned out over the course of a couple of years, you start to be able to piece it together. It looks like it's a small number of genes. One gene is doing 50% of the heavy lifting. A lot of people don't realize there's different. Black pigment isn't just black pigment. It's a pigment distribution mutation. It doesn't, the hypomelanism in Brettles pythons and in coastal carpets and boa constrictors for that matter, it's not a mutation that affects the ability to produce black pigment. It's a mutation that breaks down the distribution of that pigment, which is a very different thing.
Right.
The definition of hypomelanism is just literally less black. That's all it means. You can get there by 2 different means. You can have basically a dilute gene that affects pigment synthesis, which boogers up the ability to produce properly formed melanin. We tend to call these things T-positive albinos now because it sounds way sexier. I mean, if hypomelanism, if there was no such thing as a hypo-Honduran milk snake and they found that now, it'd be a T-positive albino milk snake.
True. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It is affecting the ability to synthesize that pigment, and it's only partway there, so it's kind of purpley. But the amount of surface area covered by that black pigment, even though it's not the right color, is unchanged. The other type in boas and Brettles and coastals and a bunch of other species is a pigment distribution mutation. They can make the pigment just fine, but it affects the quantity, whereas the other affects the quality. And that's a very different mechanism. And you see in the latter type, the former is always recessive. The T-positive albino pigment synthesis type is always recessive, and the pigment distribution type is always incomplete dominant. Even in Brettles pythons, where it's more than one gene, all the genes are incomplete. All of the genes that contribute to that phenotype are incomplete dominant. In the case of Brettles, it looks like there's one gene that's doing about 50% of the work, a core sort of gene. And that seems to silence the pigment distribution that occurs right out of the egg, so they hatch out visibly hypomelanistic. But if you ever raise Brettles pythons, and I know you guys have, they're getting that second round of black pigment that comes in at about 3-4 feet long. As they start getting to subadult size, they get another round of black pigment.
Yep.
That second round is governed by different genes than the first round. So that core gene in the hypobrettles knocks out the base layer. The other genes that are in the mix don't even come into play until they silence that later distribution of black pigment. And the combination of all of those things is you start out with very little and you end with very little.
Wow. Okay.
I've been able to figure all that out. It's only taken me a decade. Only a decade
of raising countless breadline. Yeah, it's like
I gotta do all this stuff. I gotta do it with these hypocoastals. Are those super hypos? I'm pretty confident they are, but you gotta prove that out. Like so I have to hold back really nice tiger normals that aren't hypos from that same. I'm gonna use because I had some nice ones.
Yeah.
There's only one nice female though, and then I will use those to test breed any of the putative supers to non-hypo animals to see are they actually supers. Once I've proven out 5 or 6 supers, you can kind of look for common traits and try to, is there any sort of way to tell by looking if there's any definitive indicators that it's a homozygote. I don't know. There's just not enough data. So somebody's and nobody wants to do the work anymore. Everybody wants to just wait for somebody else to do it. And I guess that falls to me.
I mean, it's just
being the carpet king comes with
heavy lies the crown.
Heavy lifting, man. What about the whole? I argue with people a lot about the whole thing that hypo is just another version of the caramel gene.
Yeah,
and what do you say to them?
Oh, they haven't been paying attention.
Thank you for that open answer.
Yeah. For everybody in the back, they are not the same gene. They are not even related. They are not at the same locus. They are not compatible. They are wholly separate and completely different things. Do they share phenotypic similarities? Yes. That does not mean they are the same thing.
Right.
They are, there's always a good ball python analogy, and since everybody knows all about those, like there's 4 different leucistic ball python complexes. They're all unrelated, at separate different locations. They're incompatible, and there's multiple genes that make a white snake at each of those. You've got the black-eyed leucistic complex of several genes that any combination of them or by themselves will make a black-eyed leucistic that is not compatible with the yellow belly complex, of which there's about 27, and most of them look like nothing. Makes a white snake that's not compatible with the black-eyed leucistic. There's the blue-eyed leucistics, of which there's like 8 or 9 of those. They're all compatible with each other, but not compatible with the other 2. And then there's the dead leucistic complex, the hidden gene womas, spider, champagne. Any combination of them or their own homozygotes are dead white snakes, and they're not compatible with any of the others. So I guess that's it. It's like you might have. They're all identifiable. If you look at a blue-eyed Lucy, a black-eyed Lucy, a dead Lucy, or you can tell the difference between them phenotypically. They have similarities, but they are not. They are separate things.
So caramel and hypo are pretty much the same. They're separate.
They're not the same thing. They don't look the same, really. Like
no, not that way.
I keep trying to show this to people. Like it was a couple of years ago. I posted in 2019 when I produced my first super hypo.
Yeah.
She's a freaking mouser, so it's going to take me a while to prove that she's a super.
Great.
Because of course she's a mouser.
Yep.
And won't even do me the courtesy of eating chickens or something, so it's taking a minute. But she should be eating like weaned rats or medium rats, but I got to do it with mice, so it's just going to take a couple extra years probably.
Right.
But yeah, when that hatched, I posted a picture of like, here's a freshly hatched caramel and a freshly hatched hypo.
Yeah.
In the same, sitting on top of each other, so you can see them, and they were as clear as day. They were not the same thing. And then the same thing. Here is a super hypo and a super caramel that hatched 5 days apart, and they were sitting there right together, and they are completely look like from different planets. There's no similar, other than they have less black pigment than normal and are reddish orangish. Other than that, they are very different. I mean, if you like caramels better, awesome. That's cool. Whether it's entirely subjective as to whether if you find one you like better, or that's just purely opinion. But to say that they're the same is just belies a complete ignorance in the stuff. Like this has been science the shit out of this. I mean, this is like when Paul was proving out that the hypos were separate, was proving out the hypo thing. Like he's talks to me all the time, and I'm like telling him exactly what to do. I made him do 4 test breedings, 4 clutches that were very strategic to prove that. I said, you're going to want to sell these, and the first thing somebody's going to say, that's just a caramel.
Right.
You need to settle that. it was obvious they weren't caramels, but they might be compatible with caramels, in which case you have like an allelic thing where it's just like it's maybe a slightly stronger version of that same sort of thing at the same locus. I go, you have to answer that question before you sell them. So we did 4 clutches. They are absolutely not. It took 2 generations and like 80 babies. He bred a hypo to a caramel.
Yeah.
Made animals that were obviously hypo caramels because they were glowing in the dark. They were beyond the range of anything a caramel or hypo makes by itself. It was obvious what they were. Then raised them up for a few years, then bred them to females that could not produce red babies, that had a proven track record and they were just incapable of making any sort of red baby at all.
Right.
No Darwin, no nothing. And the results were, it would be obvious. If they were allelic, then you would make no normal babies. You'd make half caramels and half hypos and no normals and no combos.
Right.
And it would be obvious. The presence of even a single normal in any of those clutches disproved that they were compatible. And there was no normals there were normals in every single clutch.
Right.
In roughly 25%. And there were obvious hypo caramels in every clutch. Or what appeared to be in every clutch. And there were, it's like, I don't even care if you can identify the hypo caramel with accuracy. It's like, you can surely identify the normals.
Normal, yeah.
Normals in every clutch.
And that's
and
it.
The sample size was, with a sample size of nearly 80 babies, there's no way. They are not the same thing. It's like, you don't have to like hypos or caramels or either one for that matter, but you can't say they're the same thing.
Right.
That has been, if you're going to still make that argument, then you just probably don't like me or Paul or whatever.
Or you just haven't been, like, you refuse to listen.
Like you're just pissing in the wind at that point. Like, it is not, you can say that you don't like it. That's your opinion. That's fine. But it's like, you can't
deny it.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, we live in a world where people can deny just about anything.
That is true. That is true.
A shocking percentage of people are entirely fact resistant.
Right. Yeah. No matter how much evidence you put in front of them.
I enjoy that one.
Well, and you can't reason with people that are fact resistant because what your argument is, you're going to use facts and science and data to convince somebody that their opinion is wrong. But if their opinion was derived in the absence of facts and reason and data, they're not going to be swayed by evidence. They are resistant to evidence. You're never going to convince them.
Right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So
you're just like, all right, cool. I guess vaccines cause autism. Awesome. Like, carry on.
Thank you. All right, have fun.
Put on your hat or whatever. It's like you're not going to convince those people of clear and unequivocal science because they don't believe in science. That's why they have these opinions. You're not going to convince the flat earther that the earth is a sphere with facts and science.
Right.
Somewhere there's a flat earther right now driving an Uber using a GPS with using geosynchronous satellites that are orbiting the earth and not seeing the irony in that.
Right.
There's a guy that guy exists right now. Flat earther using GPS.
That's awesome. Me and Owen were talking about stripes the other day, and one of the things that came up, and I figured you would be the guy to ask, right? When you have a recessive stripe gene, like in Brednals, right?
Yeah.
Have you done any kind of selective breeding with that? Can you selectively breed?
Can you refine
a recessive trait like that? Can you selectively breed that stripe?
There's no hard answer on that. It does not respond well to that. You can't say you can't do it.
Right.
Because ultimately the phenotype of an animal, we focus on the mutant gene,
right.
As if that was magical and controlled all aspects of color and pattern characteristics, when really there's a myriad of genes that affect color and pattern, and you just have one broken one, but the other ones still have some influence over the end product, so to speak. So it is possible that there are other alleles floating around at a different locus that might influence or might play better with the stripe and give you a better result. I have tried, and it doesn't seem I've gotten basically nowhere with that.
Right. Okay.
But, and here's the big but, and that is within the Lazic bloodline that the stripe came from to begin with. When you mix hypo stuff with stripe stuff, weird things happen. in that you start getting het stripes that are striped. I produced hypo het stripes that were so striped I couldn't tell if they were visual stripes or hets. But technically, they were only possible hets in some cases.
Wow. Huh.
The stripe gene is recessive in its relationship to wild type. And I've made 1 million double het stonewash stripe. Not 1 million. I've made probably 40 double het stonewash stripes. I made I made a clutch of just het genetic stripes to send to Paul when I sent him all that other brittle stuff. I made him just that. There wasn't a striped snake or a partially striped snake. They were completely stone cold normal. All of them, every time.
Right.
Make hypo hets, breed a stripe to a hypo, and all of a sudden you get a lot of weird stripey stuff. Wow. If you look at my website now, you'll see like a good handful of hypos they're 50% hypo blood, but they're second generation 50%, which is genetically works out a little different in those sort of things, but than a first generation 50% animal. But they're 66% het stripe, and you can just go down the list and tell which ones are het stripe because it's really obvious. They have really aberrant patterns, dorsal striping, and then they'll be like, and 1/3 of them will be completely banded, normal-looking snakes. It's really, really, really abundantly clear if you want to make hypo stripes, which ones you should probably get.
Right.
Really clear.
Gotcha.
That only happens with hypo, and I don't think that the hypo alleles. I think there's something in that bloodline of Brettles pythons that is probably plays nicer with the stripe.
Gotcha.
The hypomelanistic genetic stripes that I've made, which I've made 7. Every single one of them is ludicrously striped. Like they look like the best tiger coastal you ever saw, but it's a Brettles python. They have flawless, perfect stripes in a way that the normal stripe gene never gets to usually.
Right.
And even the stripes that aren't hypos from those clutches, because you get a small percentage that won't really be hypomelanistic enough to even say hypomelanistic. It's a glorified normal. They have perfect, crazy stripes. So something in that other bloodline of Brettles plays nice with it, and so that might be evidence that if there are other alleles in other bloodlines you could select for in a project, it does suggest you can refine and make better genetic stripes. Because I made non-hypo genetic stripes that are insane, but I think you have to borrow some alleles from that other bloodline because there doesn't seem to be enough in the Lazic line to really do a lot if you stick within that one bloodline. And I've never striped an Afors or a Harris line animal or anything. It's possible that you might get better results there too. I don't know. I've never tried.
Gotcha.
That's
too many projects.
Yeah,
not
man.
enough time and space,
You would even believe it's nuts. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Do you need some Brettles python adults? Like 8 or 10 adult?
No, I'm tapped with my 5.
I got 2.2. I got two pairs of Hypos genetic stripes that are growing on and getting big, and I've got 2 pairs of Hypos stonewash het for stripe.
Jesus.
There's 2.2 of those. And this year, I've got 3.3 hypo stonewash, full blood hypo visual stonewash that are, they should all be ready, but they won't be because I can't feed everything that much. But I got some that I'll probably be able to try for a clutch of just breeding them to each other.
Wow.
Yeah, it's too many snakes. It's too many snakes.
When we think of when we're talking bredli, you had done that talk. Where did you do that? The one that I think you and Justin both did a talk. You did it on carpets, and it was maybe 2019. You did it.
The Herpeton Symposium.
That's it. You put up a picture. One of the things that herping, seeing carpets in the wild or whatever, and you see how they just blend into their environment. You had this picture. I don't know if it was your picture or whose picture it was, but you see the tail of the bredli, and it's right inside this rock, and it's camouflage perfect. And because you would always think why is the tail darker than the rest of them or whatever. And I don't know. I saw that picture and
picture was taken by a friend of mine.
Nice.
Yeah. So you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. He, of course, he used to be a Zoom Ed sales rep, and he just was there for some work related thing, and just went out there. Oh, look, a Brettles question, because apparently it's not easy.
Damn it!
It's not easy for everybody but me. Apparently, they're just hanging out waiting to be discovered. Unless He's not even into carpets at all. Like,
They just stumbled upon it.
That's the way it
Alice
is.
Yeah.
Springs, and he's a reptile guy for sure, but he's not
Right.
a carpet guy. He just was in
Right.
Alice Springs, and then
Oh, that's awesome.
there it is. Like,
Note
but I
to
wanted
self:
that
when we go to Alice Springs, though, and don't take Nick because
No,
he's not going to find a red
he's
line.
a black mark. Yeah.
I've been up to Top End twice. I have yet to see an Owen belly python. I've been there twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
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 I was just thinking about that the other day. Something popped up, and I was just like, "Wow, I can't believe we actually found."
Dude, I'm
one of
getting
those
itchy. I
things.
want to go herping again. Like we just went looking for
Yeah.
rattlesnakes, but I want to do like a trip,
Yeah.
like for pythons, for like actual shit.
I'll
you
try.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but nobody ever invites me to go, so
Uh,
kind of.
we
Well,
gotta go
you don't-
first. We gotta get the lockdown.
We're just going in our backyard here.
Yeah.
Going herping.
assemble an entourage or something and organize a herp trip.
That
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, we can.
Hell
we
yeah.
can-
Trying to go to in September. I'm trying to go down and hang out with Brandon Wheeler and David Hasten in San Diego and look for rosy bows again. But
Cool.
I've got like a carpet fest on the 18th of September. I've got a reptile expo in the town I live in on the 11th of September. It's like it's
These
kind of
contraband,
crowded trying to find.
these contraband carpet fests that are popping up without our blessing. What's going on with this
Hey,
crap?
what? But Northwest, this is like the 8th time. I
Yeah.
might have encouraged them to do it too. I'm like,
might have pushed that up, pushed
Yeah.
that rock over that cliff. Yeah,
He's like, well, the East Coast guys don't want to do it, so let's
Somebody do
get the West
something.
Coast people to do
Yeah.
it.
if you're freaked out about the Rona still and you're not vaccinated, then stay the fuck home. Like, I mean, it's like I'm so over it at this
Yeah.
point. Like, look, I played nice. I did play by all the silly rules. Like, got my vaccination on the very first day possible, as did everyone else in my house. Like, I'm like,
Right.
I'm kind of over this. Like, if you want to, roll the dice and believe in conspiracy theories, and it's kind of like social Darwinism at that point. It's like, well, I guess you're the ones who are going to get it, and 1/2 of you dinglings are going to die. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
Good luck,
I
everybody.
can't bother to worry about that 1/2 of 1% of the dinglings anymore. It's like, we told you.
Yeah, the planet could use a few less people, but now that we went down that dark road,
Yeah, that was
It's
a
not
weird
going
turn.
to be statistically significant enough to make a dent in that, but it is pulling from the right pile of people.
right.
It's kind of.
Those facts.
I just like in my old age, like I just like need patience for people that don't believe in science and just have their crackpot conspiracy theories. It's like, you can argue about facts, but you got to be objectively looking at the same set of facts. You can't just make up your own facts and
Right.
ignore the others.
everybody's,
Yeah.
everybody's a fucking expert, and everybody's because they watched a YouTube video. It's like if your research into a subject involves sitting on a toilet and looking at YouTube, you're not researching anything. You're not. It's like I had people argue with me. It's like, oh my god, like one of my good friends is literally a virologist. Like,
Yeah.
he's literally a virologist. Like I have literally a virologist on speed dial. Like this is like, oh my god,
Yes.
not everything's a conspiracy. Go get the free shot. Shut up about it.
Yeah. Just be done with this
Mhm.
nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah, I am done. I am 100% not playing. I am done with this. Like I am out.
Yeah.
Yep. We will get a carpet fest going at some point. We just have to convince Eric to.
I'm a little disappointed in you guys, frankly. I thought you'd do it this year. I kind of tried to.
Well, we have to convince Eric to destroy his very newly put back together house. So
Is that what it is? Is it mainly just that Eric doesn't want to wreck his house?
Yeah. Pretty much.
he
Yeah.
just did it the way he wanted.
Oh.
Yeah, just-
I got Wheeler and off the roof. Yeah.
I am dying. I had to cancel my tip to go look for rough scales and dive with whale sharks because of this. I want to get out of town. I need
Oh
to get
my
on a
God,
plane
yeah.
and go
damn.
somewhere.
Yeah.
You were like us.
In
We were
Australia,
actually
I will settle
days.
for carpet vest and a cheesesteak. I'll settle for that. I will.
We were days away from leaving from Western Australia, like literally days away, and you guys were in the same
Oh, yeah,
situation.
and I bought everybody's ticket. I was there. There's a moment where like, oh my god, I have $10,000 in airfare that I just paid for everybody in my group. I just to make it easier to get all the seats booked together. It's just easier if one person pays. And
Right.
Right.
Of course, me. And then like, oh shit. I mean, the airline was really good about refunding it all, but there was a minute where I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I just left it as credit, so that way
Going back at some point. Yeah.
there, you know?
That's
So much to see.
2022 maybe they'll open up. It's like, you guys are out of your minds.
Yeah.
The country's biggest export is tourism. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, now that I'm into monitor lizards, which we had a little bit of a rant before about monitor lizards, but yeah, you know.
No, yeah.
Yeah, man, when you start to see the other Australian reptiles besides the pythons, and you start to, I don't know, you're like, oh shit, I got to look at that too. I got to pay attention to this. And
it leads for a lot of like days of no sleep though when you're in Australia, because it's like, oh, during the day you're chasing monitors, and then at twilight, at dawn and dusk, you're looking for blue-tongued skinks because they're active there. And then at night, you're looking for pythons, and then you sleep on the plane on the way home. And that's it.
Right.
It's like the whole way home.
Much.
Yeah.
You're just surviving on caffeine, meat pies, and adrenaline, pretty much.
Icebreakers and whatever you can find at there you go.
Yeah, man, they're the best. They are the best.
My last trip to Australia, I gained 17 pounds in 13 days.
Yeah.
Which, considering that a pound of body fat is the equivalent in calories works out to be 3,500 calories. That shouldn't be physiologically possible to gain that much weight in that period of time, unless you were eating like literally would have to eat. I'd have to be eating like 9,000 calories a day or something, just insane. But somehow, apparently, eating sausage rolls and meat pies while sitting on your ass driving around all day.
That'll do it. Yeah, apparently
it's the icebreaker. They push you over the edge.
Yep.
Love those things. Oh my goodness.
Best. Especially you get those like out of the way little roadhouse in the middle of nowhere, and they like make their own sausage rolls.
Yes.
So it's like a lot easier. And then the big fatty ones, and they're so good. And they tell you to put ketchup on them, and I'm like, I'm not fucking putting ketchup on them.
I want this right now.
And you know what? It's awesome with ketchup. It's like you just got to do it. It's there's a place over in Seattle, in the Seattle area, south of Seattle, where it's some Aussie guy runs it. It's the Australian Meat Pie Company, and you can get real, authentic Australian meat pies made by a real, authentic Australian dude. And it's glorious. It's right by the airport, so I do international shipments. On those rare occasions, I have to do an international shipment. I will stop and get some meat pies.
That's awesome.
Best.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, and everybody that does, I remember when the first time you were telling me you have to eat the meat pie. You have to eat the meat pie. I'm like, what is this meat pie you're talking about? And then I'd pull over to the gas station and eat the meat pie. I'm like, oh yeah, this is glorious.
It is. Like, people don't realize when you go on a trip to Australia like that, it's not just about the reptiles you see. Because a lot of times you don't see anything. Sometimes you get skunked. It's the whole experience. You got to eat. I've traveled around the world a lot, and you want to experience the culture. You eat the crazy food. You do all the stuff and the things and everything.
Yeah.
Eating the food, and you just got to embrace it. It's awesome.
I think I ate a burger with like beets on it.
Like
I'm like, yeah, whatever it is, man.
You know what? It's weird too, but it's great. Like, I don't
good.
The better places you get like it's fresh beetroot that's sliced, not canned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it just turns into like pink juice that's running down your hands. Like it's gross. Like, all over it.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but it's good. And they're like, like burger and cheese and bacon and everything else. Some beetroot and fried egg. And it's like just
it's piled up so high. It's like, this is impossiable. But you got to do it.
Remember, I couldn't even fit it in my mouth. Oh, it was great. It was great stuff.
Defibrillator.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Last trip we went up the Cape York Peninsula, and we stopped at the Archer River Roadhouse, which is a point of no return, because right after the Archer River Roadhouse, you have to cross a river, and they close the road, and you're not able to go in the wet season. And we were pushing our luck, but we stopped there because it's the last chance civilization for a while, and they made a great burger, of course, because all those places do. And I watched Stephen Katz eat 2 of them. And
holy shit!
What is wrong with you? What are you doing? Why are you doing this to yourself? Like, how can anybody? And I'm not a small guy at all, but it was just he ate one and fries, and then got another one and ate the whole thing.
Damn!
Holy shit!
Yeah, no, it was. I don't know. He had a death wish or something like that. Like, I could just hear his arteries clogging.
Yeah. I'm dancing with the devil
I mean,
today.
yeah, he's a young man. He'll recover quickly, but Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Oh my God. I couldn't believe anybody can eat 2 of those.
Wow.
Yeah, I miss the Australian burgers. They do it right. And sometimes I'll get a pineapple ring on some of them. You get like a
Yep.
What do we got?
Sweet, savory, bacon, salty, whatever, man. It's everything. It's great.
These people order a cheeseburger. What do we got in the fridge? Just throw it on top of that thing. Yeah.
Holy hell.
I think Australia's got great food.
Yeah. So, how's the book coming along?
What's going on with that?
Oh man, I knew you were gonna ask me about that.
I mean, it is really
I figured I'd warm you up with some talk of burgers and
I don't have to answer questions about it anymore. It's kind of, every day it's like I get like multiple emails a day. Hey, when's that book gonna be out?
The release announcement is Nick. Here, now shut the hell up. It's just,
Right.
It is. I mean, there have been a lot of delays. I will say with absolute confidence, it will be worth the wait, and people will ultimately be glad that it was delayed.
Okay.
Because it will be better for it. It has exponentially grown in scope and scale from the first edition. It is hundreds of pages longer. It's like basically the first book rewritten and then another book added on top of that book. There's, I think, 3 or 4 chapters that weren't in the first edition. Every chapter is probably 30% longer. Just like, okay, for example, like the morph section before.
Right.
The text, the text file for that, not all the pictures, just the actual written words on the page, in the first edition is only about 3.5 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a brief introduction and then little blurbs about what you're looking at. It's just a picture gallery. The text for the new version is 23 pages long.
Holy shit.
Oh, shit.
And I haven't even written anything about morphs, about what any picture is. That's just, there is there's an in-depth discussion about how morphs work. What makes an albino? What's the nature of that mutation? How is it breaking this process to produce an amelanistic animal or whatever? So you kind of a glimpse into the mechanisms at play that morphs bring about these alternate phenotypes. There is a section on basically, so you think you got a new morph. Here's what you need to do to prove this out.
Yes.
So with people that don't want to do it the right way. It's like, if you've got something, you think it's something, and it probably isn't. Because, frankly, most things aren't. I've proven out a few morphs, and I've had a lot more that didn't prove out.
Yep.
It's the nature of it. The odds are against anything proving out. But you have to do the work. And it doesn't matter what it is, you have to take all of your available data that you can be confident in, and you construct a series of experimental test breedings in which you remove all other possibilities and you arrive at what the only thing it can be. And that's what you do. And nobody wants to do it anymore. They always want to jump right to, they bred some weird thing and they start selling hets straight away because they're, want to cash those checks. And they inevitably, not always, but very often end up, and I don't know whether it's people do this out of just a desire to defraud people or just because they just believe their own bullshit.
Right.
It's like they want to believe it so badly that they suspend all disbelief and just like jump right to the conclusion that they want rather than the conclusion that the evidence supports. And so there's a section on how you prove out. What are the steps? What do you need to do to prove out that sort of thing?
Nice.
And if you go through all these steps, and you'll know. It's not.
You wrote that for the reduced pattern diamond people, didn't you? You wrote that for the reduced pattern diamond people.
I'm sitting here looking at one, and I swear to God, if I have to be the one to figure it out, we have a problem. Because I really don't like diamond pythons. I'll admit that. Mine are all jerks. They all hate me. I don't, because I never feed them.
Right.
Because they're diamond pythons, which is why I have.
Right.
My pair in my living room are 13 years old and just barely big enough to breed this last year. Just barely.
Right.
Took over a decade to get them up to breeding size. Granted, I surely could have done it safely faster than that, but
right.
But yeah, this is a knowable thing. It is there really are only 3 possibilities. It's one of 3 because it is heritable. There's no question that it's heritable. So the not genetic at all is not one of the options. It's completely dominant, it's recessive, or it's a polygenic thing.
Right.
And it's one of the three. And, you know, I think everybody, I don't know. There are problems with diamond python community, I will say. I don't think that comes as any surprise to you guys.
No.
There are a lot of attitudes and egos and stuff.
There's a problem with every community.
It gets in the way of discovery, I think.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't care enough to do it myself. Like, I have so much stuff to prove out and get figured out. I just wanted to breed diamond pythons to say I bred them, frankly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I had a pair of reduced pattern ones, but the female committed suicide several years ago.
Oh.
When younger, you ever use the old school, like the disposable water bowls where it's got a lid on it and there's a big hole cut in the lid?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an old colubrid thing from way back. Works great.
Yeah.
You know, this is like a 3.5 foot long snake, and that's its water bowl, and it crawled inside of it mostly. Like, it got so in there and got stuck. Half of its body was wedged in there with its head down underwater. And I found it. It had been there for a long time, probably a day. And it had like brain damage from oxygen deprivation. It was all gurked out never was right again and then died about a year later. It was just like.
It like waterboarded itself? Like, what the hell is.
Yes. Yeah. One of those freak things I'll never see that again for the rest of my life. That will never happen again.
Dude, again, we were talking
like
the pregame thing. Like the pre-show when we were talking about like the horrible mistakes and all that bullshit. Like again, this is one of them. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like,
I don't think that was a mistake on my part.
No.
I don't know
on
why
its own, on the own stupid animal's fault. Like, come on.
Right.
And I think it's important for people to understand as hobbyists that everybody fucks up.
Yep.
We all do dumb things. We all make mistakes, and everybody always wants to do the same thing. They try to live this alternate reality on social media where everything's perfect and everything's great and look at what I'm doing. Isn't this awesome? And everything's sunshine and roses and unicorns and it's awesome.
There's no problems in my collection. Right.
We all get bit, we get kissed and shit on, snakes die, things don't breathe, they slug out. Apparently they commit suicide sometimes, like crawling inside a tiny hole. And things happen. It doesn't always go to script. Often, and it's a never-ending sort of cacophony of things that go wrong. And if everybody never talks about it, I think there's a tendency for people as hobbyists to like get down on themselves and think they screwed up or that they made some grievous error, and maybe they did. But it's like we're all done it, and there's some comfort in knowing you didn't. It's like you're not going to make a mistake I've never made because I found them all at this point. Like I say that, and then I find new ones still. It's like we are all human. We all screw up. You just dust yourself off and get back on the horse and keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged by failures. Learn from it.
Yeah.
I don't make the same mistakes twice. That's the only thing that's ever going to die on that water bowl thing in the history of herpetoculture. Will never happen again. I've had a lot of freak weird things, but they only happen once.
Yeah.
Never repeat. It's like when I killed my Angolan python clutch a couple of years ago. Never make that mistake again.
Well, this year you hatched them out, right? So there you go.
It makes it all better when there's success.
I kind of wonder if they're Partho babies. It's all been breed. My last two clutches. I have inland carpets that are hatching. As soon as I get off the phone, I gotta go pull them out of the incubator room. But they have some inland carpets. But I hatched the Dunn's clutch, and then a few days later the Angolans hatched, and both clutches were entirely female.
But wait, all the Dunai are female.
Yes.
He says having a lone male Dunai and knowing that now he knows who to call.
I have had a lot of suspected Partho stuff. If you know what you're looking for, I think it's way more common. I know it's way more common. I've had a few where it was obvious, where there's a morph involved where you couldn't possibly not be a Partho thing. But I've had others where you get I had a run of 37 consecutive females over 3 clutches from a pair of Nova Guinea carpets.
Yeah.
I bred the pair 4 times, never saw them breed ever, but they were in a place where it's kind of hard to look in their cage. The first clutch was 1 male and 7 females. I held back the only male in the clutch and one of the females. Second clutch was 12 females. Third clutch was 13 females. Fourth clutch was 7 females and 5 or 6 more dead in the shell. Full term died. I let her maternally incubate. She didn't do a good job. I sexed the dead ones that were full term in the egg, and they were all females. The statistical probability of hatching, even if you throw out the 1 male to 7 female ratio the first clutch, just the 3 consecutive clutches of all females, I think it was like 37 females in total, the statistical probability of that is billions to 1. It's almost incalculable. It's, like my Angolan clutch this year is 6 eggs, 6 babies, 6 females. The odds of being 6 females out of 6 eggs is only a 1.5% chance.
Wow.
Jesus.
You keep cutting that 1.5% chance at 6. At 7 babies, it's 0.75% of a chance. And then you keep cutting. Now imagine if you kept doing that 35 more times. And you get to the odds where it's just as astronomical, a lot of exponents. It's like it's just that it's not that. She was clearly, the male wasn't doing anything, or she was doing it on her own. Then I bred that pair from the first clutch years later at like 9 years old. And I hatched like 5 males and 2 females. I saw them breed totally normal sausage.
Wow.
Face.
So now I just hatched a clutch of olive pythons, and I have 1.10 out of the olives.
Yeah.
Would that be considered a potential?
Hang on, just don't tell me, but were there by any chance any babies that didn't absorb their yolk properly and or sat in the egg for days after, like, everybody's hatched and they're like, there's like a couple just still sitting in the egg for like 3 more days.
This is not good. Yes. All of them looked, most of the girls looked like they had big full yolks, and it kind of almost like there was several bulges in there from the yolk.
That's not actually.
Okay.
That's gross, but not unusual.
Okay.
With them.
All right.
But I've just seen, like, with suspected partho ones, you do get that, like, there's the one that's still sitting in the egg 2 days after everybody else is hatched, and it didn't absorb its yolk, and it never has a first shed, and you got to cyst feed it for 6 months, and it's a total piece of crap.
Wonderful.
That's your partho baby.
Okay.
I have a genetic stripe Brettles from 2019. It eats weaned. It ate a live rat fuzzy.
Oh.
I got it at a hardjack yesterday. I just saw that it had eaten it today. I'm like, wow, finally it ate a rat, a live one. But I had to cyst feed that thing for 8 or 9 months.
Jeez.
It's obviously a Parthogen. The clutch was 10 sexually produced babies and 1 Partho female, mixed. The clutch were double het stonewashed genetic stripes, and there's 1 lone stripe. And I know for a fact the male is not het. The male stonewash is not het for stripe.
Right.
I had bred that same pair of snakes. I produced all the snakes involved. I know their ancestries, and I bred that same pair of snakes for 3 different years. That was their 3rd clutch together. There are no stripes. Like, they produced like almost 40 odd babies.
And 1 stripe.
All the double het stonewash stripes I've ever produced from that same pair over 3 clutches. And then the last clutch, there's the 11th baby is a Partho stripe. Who totally sucks.
Wow.
This actually seems reasonably solid now. I still kept her just because of curiosity.
Yeah.
Right.
But
that's so
these
weird.
things, you very much can have a clutch of sexually produced babies, and there's like 3 Partho females mixed in. How would you know?
You wouldn't.
Your clutch, you might have a male in the mix. The statistical probability of 1.10 is pretty freaking low. Like, really low.
I'm pretty sure I just either suck at sexing.
Unfathomably low.
Yeah.
But you might have a situation where you've got 1.6 and then another 4 females that are Partho babies.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all mixed in. If there's no morphs or anything that would really give you an indicator, like a random homozygous super zebra popping out or something.
They're olive pythons. They all look the goddamn same.
Too.
Yeah.
I actually like that about olives and water pythons, because I'm I have to send Eric some water pythons, and I don't have to wait around bullshitting about taking pictures of them all.
2 of them throw in a box. Yeah. So there you go. Bye.
Olive pythons are great. You can't even tell if you're looking at a baby or an adult if you don't have anything to scale. They don't even get lighter or darker with age. It's like,
who gives
the
a
water
damn?
pythons. It looks like a bigger, nothing for scale. They all look the same. They're carbon copies of them. So
Are olive pythons?
Those are feeding about ready to go. If you wanted that pair of those guys,
Yes,
of course he does.
Yeah,
you
100%. Yeah, just tell me what.
Do you need 1 or 2, Eric? 12?
I need 2. Yeah, 2. Yeah, pair.
Super female heavy.
Okay. Huh. Should I get a 1.3 or something?
Get a
or
trio.
1.2?
Get a trio, buddy.
Yeah.
Female, it probably wouldn't be I've got a million people blowing me up about them, but of course your VIP status, you got to take care of the.
Yeah, you got some weight.
You got to take care of the big kahuna there,
Last time I called Nick, he's like, "Oh crap, my I'm going up in the world. Owen McIntyre's calling me." I'm like, "Well, he does know how to make you feel good." It's like,
yeah. And then
I should autograph that Wildcaught Mac lot you sent me.
the one that I'm buying, I bought the female back. Yeah, Jesus.
What?
Like, well, you're talking about you're talking about your Brisbane. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, I have a Brisbane male. I'm gonna have to send it to Nick, and he's gonna breed it to everything, and then he's gonna make all these clutches like every male that I send him. So
you sent me that male Mac lots, and I don't think he did breed.
I never saw shit.
But he was in the hide with her, and she's a lunatic. Well, she's so crazy she killed the other male.
Right. Yeah.
Like, she's nuts.
Right.
And I never saw him breed, but I wasn't gonna pull the hide box down from the ceiling and look in. Are you kidding me? Where the cage is, like, I had to be on my knees and not in a position I could recoil fast enough. Like, I'm not taking a bite to the face over that.
All right.
I assumed he was doing something. She went through the motions, got a great clutch. 11 eggs. 10 eggs went the distance. Guess what the sex ratio was? 0.10.
Holy shit.
Females.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. No males in sight. It was odds of a 10 female clutch. It's ridiculous. I think he probably just cuddled and she just did it on her own, more than likely, because the probability of all 10 out of 10.
Are olive pythons like blood pythons or something like that, where they're difficult to tell male from female? Or are they pretty straightforward when you're sexing?
Yeah, they're straightforward. They're easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, big babies.
Short tails are like,
olives are
oh my god, holy shit.
People misunderstand, so they aren't successful with them. But I've noticed a lot more people are being successful with them in the last 4 or 5 years. It's like,
they're finally listening to you.
At the same time as I haven't produced any in like 4 years. Like, go bigger.
Yeah.
I had this like well-oiled olive python producing machine, and then I did this terrible thing where I spent a mountain of money to get albino olive pythons, and then they got big because olives do that, and I had to only so many 6-foot cages, so I sent out some well-proven breeders on breeding loan to friends to make room for those albinos, which have gone on to produce nothing. They are now 10 years old. A decade I've been messing with those things, and the females have produced follicles since they were 18 months old at shockingly small sizes. I started trying to breed them at 2.5 years old when they were, and neither one has ever done anything ever.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Wow.
So I just like killed my olive python production forever.
Oh wow.
If I produce albinos, it's going to be by breeding my own head albinos that I produce.
Just raising them up.
The male albino bred 2 normal female olives in 2015. And I have a pair of babies from 2015 that have been sitting on the back burner. I've been feeding them up now. Like, all right, I guess you guys are up. I don't think these albino girls are ever going to do anything.
Right. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
My only normal female is now 16 years old.
Yeah.
So she's getting to that point where, you can't count on a clutch every year. So
right.
I mean, they're a big snake, but they're not. I mean, they don't have to be what
They don't need to be huge. No.
Therein
lies the secret. You never see 15-foot olive pythons on eggs ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yep.
Right.
Like, the biggest clutch I ever had was 20 eggs, which is a lot of olive python eggs.
Yeah.
And that female what was she? 2002. She's like a PPI animal. At the time, she was, I think, 17 years old. And she laid a giant clutch. She laid one more clutch and then prolapsed her oviduct. The eggs didn't come out of the oviduct. The oviduct came out of her like sausage links.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Hey.
I've had that happen on the carpet.
Snakes, and they usually survive it, actually.
Yeah.
You have to literally amputate the oviduct and everything because it's not going back.
Yeah, and then they're done.
Which I did, but in her depleted state, it was a giant clutch, and she was like 18 years old, and she lived for some months, but never bounced back after that.
Yeah.
So it sucks. There's like one of the only snakes I actually got a little not attached to, but kind of like so I've had this snake for so freaking long.
Yeah.
Some of these older, animals you've had for 20 years.
That's what you get
You
into.
don't really see that a lot, right? You
Well,
know,
you're supposed to. I mean,
well, I know you're supposed to,
Yeah.
but you know,
People always
you're
like,
supposed to do a lot of things.
yeah, I feel like, you know, the number one thing that kills snakes at my house is cancer.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, I've had
because
several.
if you keep them long enough and they get old, eventually you start getting old people things just happen to snakes too. It's like you start getting things that come with age. They're, you know, the age is a bigger component, and if they're still alive at 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
You know, this most people, I think they think these things live 8 or 10 years because that's their expectation, and they're dead because they're feed them too much and push them too hard and breed them too many times, and then they burn the candle at both ends, and you shorten their life expectancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think green trees are probably the worst because of what people do. You know, like
can't even like. I know nobody listening to this can. You can almost like hear my eyes roll when I say it. You can hear an audible eye roll. It's like, oh my god.
You know, Matt Somerville just posted up 2 videos of him herping the Cape York, and he found, I think it was 12 green trees, and guess what? None of them were.
Not hard to find.
Huge.
Hard part is getting up there. What?
None of them were big.
Huge.
None of them were big at all.
They're not supposed to be huge.
Yeah.
Like I went up, found one. Oh look, there's a green python. Guess what it was? 300 grams soaking wet. Had a giant head on it. It was obviously a full-grown adult.
Yeah.
Like, it's because they're little tiny snakes. But you can't convince some people in that community of that. They've convinced themselves of a bunch of things that aren't true for so long that even now, in the face of overwhelming evidence, they're just, nope, I'm just going to stick with this.
Yeah.
It's like they just grasp at whatever straws. And I don't want to paint with a broad brush. I know a lot of people in the green tree python community, and there's some really good people I consider friends, and people who understand this even. But
sure. Yeah.
I'm talking more the general sort of zeitgeist, if you will, of that community is one of just mostly nonsense. It's so bad I don't keep green tree pythons at all anymore. I own 0. I literally don't even work with them anymore. I got rid of them all and won't even work with them because I don't want to deal with those people.
Right.
I don't want to answer the stupid questions. I don't want to be perpetually doing nothing but correcting misinformation. It's too frustrating. I'm at my wit's end with the carpet python people, frankly. I don't have it in me to take on another group like, you know, snakes with a bunch of problems. It's just too many.
We keep you.
Which is fact that they're actually pretty cool snakes, but I don't even want to deal with it. It's just.
I'm curious to see what happens to the carpet python world when the book comes out, and you know, if there are any kind of like surprises or whatever, you know, how it's like, you know, Owen says it all the time where it's like, oh, now I can breed my jungle to my coastal.
What happens if my zebra jag becomes a pure animal? What does this mean?
Yeah. Didn't you do that? It's so funny too.
You know how much it's going to kill me to be the guy that made that okay?
Yeah, I know. It's so funny, Nick.
It needs to be done because it's what the data supports, but
it still hurts.
But it's still like a locality thing, right? I mean, to some extent, right? You know, I mean,
stop trying to
clear that.
It won't affect. None of these things affect what I put together at all. In that, whether a jungle carpet is distinct enough to deserve its own taxonomic designation is not the same question as, is a jungle carpet a different snake?
Right.
It is a different thing. It is a real thing that exists in a real place, and if you go to that place, you can find that thing.
Right.
And it's not this other thing in this other area. It's this thing over here. And whether or not it deserves to get a fancy name, that's a separate issue. Where one draws the line taxonomically is actually it's mostly just made up nonsense, frankly. The further I've delved into the academic side of this, it's like the more you realize that taxonomy is just a bunch of, I won't say complete nonsense, but it is in some aspects ego-driven and ideologically driven, and it represents much more so the mindset and attitude of the person who wrote the paper than it does any empirical data all too often. And so you end up with crazy, nonsensical stuff all the time. There is no universal standard there is no universal definition of a species.
Right.
They can't even agree on what a species definition is. There's a multitude of different species concepts that you can just pick and choose whichever one you want. That's not even set. You can't even define a species. It's like and different people use different ones. The one that everybody's in love with now is the phylogenetic species concept. It's not the only one. I tend to disagree with that species concept because it almost forces you to ignore certain lines of evidence that I don't think you should ignore evidence. I think you should take the total amount of evidence and draw a conclusion from that. If you're only going to consider genetic evidence and nothing else, that will lead you down the wrong rabbit hole sometimes, and you'll end up with ridiculous conclusions like children's pythons are super closely related to green tree pythons, which, yeah, exactly. But dig into those papers, and you'll see that time and again, because in certain types of mitochondrial analysis, they cluster with those. That is not necessarily indicative of a close relationship, though.
Yeah, no, I don't see it.
No, it's because you shouldn't see it. Because there's also a disconnect between classically trained academics and people that actually know things about snakes. In that a lot of academics, they don't want to listen to people that actually know things about snakes. It's a lot of people in labs that have never even seen these things before. They're running samples and they don't know, all this other stuff. It's like and if you're looking at only that, like you can come to these conclusions. Oh, these are indistinguishable. It's like because these samples are, in your opinion, too closely related, and you ignore every single other aspect of their life, their biology, their natural history, everything. None of that matters at all. Only matters is these 2 genes we sequenced. It's like, well, that's not really. It's not a robust data set.
You're not really looking at the picture. You're just kind of like you're almost like pigeonholing it into one aspect, which is I
think you should look at all of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and clearly molecular evidence is a super important thing. It's probably the single most important thing. It is not, however, the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's biogeography is a big thing. Are these things separate? Do they interbreed? Do they trade genes with other populations? Are they genetically isolated? That matters. It should matter. These sort of, these other questions should be playing a role. And I think there's a tendency in the last several years to just ignore all the rest of that stuff and go with only a single line of evidence at the expense of all the others. Usually all the lines of evidence point in the same direction. But sometimes, I'm just saying,
somebody
look
goes
at all
off
the
here.
evidence.
Yeah.
Don't just cherry pick the ones you want. And but even with like molecular data, you're looking at sequence divergence between populations to try to decide if something is different species. Most people would not realize there is no accepted sort of amount of differentiation that denotes a species at all, not even close. Nothing. It is the Wild West. It's madness. Like, it's madness. You have some people for whatever reason, in every like little group of species, there's like a group of academics that are the guys who write all the papers in that group. If it's monitors, there's this little group of monitor guys. If it's pythons, there's those guys. So you see the same names on most of these papers. So those papers reflect their personal ideology and viewpoint, not any accepted standard in any way. It just so happens that the guys that do all the python papers are what you'd call a lumper. They think everything's the same, and to be a different species in their opinion, things need to be show massive, unfathomable levels of genetic distinction to be a separate species.
Right.
And other groups, it's not. And then you take like the other extreme. Most people don't realize there are a number of bird species, which are reptiles. They're archosaurs. So here's another divergent branch of reptiles. That these species of birds are classified not by any amount of genetic differentiation or any phenotypic variation. They are classified as separate species purely and solely based on the songs that they sing. You have like this valley over here, and the same thing over here, this other valley. They sing different songs and they're looking for females, ergo they're different species. And that passes really? The sniff test with the bird people, apparently.
Wow.
But like, couldn't it just be the same species?
But over here in Pythonville, we need to be 5% sequence divergence, which is freaking madness. Because if you held a standard of 5%, then humans and chimpanzees and bonobos and all the great apes would be Homo sapiens. And last I checked, the standards are completely and utterly unequally applied. You have, if you applied the standard that most of these papers apply to pythons, if you applied that, you'd have one elephant, you'd have one bear, you'd have all people living in extinct hominid the same species. Every hominid lineage that we've ever found a fossil of would be the same species. Everything would be the same. It's like, because all of that is less than 5%. So that's an absurdly high standard that isn't applied to literally anything else. But that's what these guys believe, and they write the papers. And another thing that taxonomically I don't think people realize is that you don't have to accept any of that stuff. People put out a paper, they put out a paper, and here's their thoughts on the matter, and they try to do whatever formally or what have you, and other researchers can read that paper and say, yeah, I'm not going with that. You don't have to accept anything. There is no like, oh, it's published, so it's officially the law of the land. That's not how it works. Like Antaresia paper. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, no. Now it's a hard no. Like it's like that's not right. Like that's.
They just they left out the pygmy banded stuff, right? That's not even in there.
I guess the biggest question in Antaresiaville is not even addressed at all. That shows you. And
wait, what?
And Stimsons and children's pythons, which have been upheld as distinct species in every single paper that looked at their DNA ever published, they're the same thing, but somehow spotted pythons are three different things. Even though there's, it's like what, including like the New Guinea spotted pythons are their own thing, really? Like that population of spotted pythons that would have shared gene flow as recently as 6,000 years ago, they're their own thing, but a spotted and a children is children and a Stimson and I are the same thing. It's like it's like, you know why? Because if you want to convince yourself that spotted pythons are three different things, you get to name a couple new things, and there's a whole lot. That's a lot cooler than not naming new things. So that enter into the mix, but it does. We all know that it does.
Right.
And not just in all of taxonomy. It's like, I don't know if you guys are big on human anthropology and that kind of stuff, but recently there's some Chinese researchers found it actually was found in the 1920s, and then it kind of got lost and then rediscovered an incredibly well-preserved skull that's 146,000 years old from China.
Nice.
It's freakishly perfect. Like almost never would you find something in that state of preservation. And they, of course, named an entirely new hominid species, even though it's all bullshit. It is quite clearly, do you know what Denisovans are or were?
Nope, not off the top of my head.
Let's go on the mother of all tangents.
Go for it.
Basically, archaic hominid lineages. Everybody knows what Neanderthals are. Most people know what Homo erectus. If you go back 250,000 years ago, you had 7 to 8 different species of humans, totally different species of humans in different places, all at the same time, overlapping, interbreeding. Basically the lineage that goes up through the Middle East and goes up and ultimately becomes Neanderthals. That lineage splits east-west, with a population moving east and a population moving west, and they make sister lineages. Mm-hmm. The ones that go west into Europe proper are Neanderthals. The ones that went east become a group called Denisovans, which we didn't even know they existed until about 10 years ago when they sequenced the DNA of a finger bone found in Denisova cave in Siberia. So turns out it's a different species entirely that we also interbred with, and they also hybridized with Neanderthals because that's what people did. And they've never found much remains. There's like a jawbone, there's like in Tibet, there's like a jawbone, part of a lower mandible, a couple teeth, and a finger bone. That's all that. But we've got their DNA from that and can learn a lot. This skull in China is quite clearly a Denisovan skull. It's like, but if they say it's a Denisovan skull, it somehow takes away from the glory that they heap upon themselves for discovering a new hominid species. So they named it something else, even though anybody with basic arithmetic skills can tell. It's like there wasn't 2 species of archaic humans that looked very much like Neanderthals roaming around in China at exactly the same time. It's one group of people. You just found here's the first skull of one, but you wanted to name it something fancy to have those naming rights, and that's a big feather in your cap if you're an academic in that field.
But it's going to take how long to disprove that? Like, because now they're going to have to study it and do whatever, and whatever.
Yeah, it's like, if you just drill a hole in one of the rear molars, you can oftentimes get good DNA. Because the teeth are the best preserved DNA really well. It's one of the hardest natural substances in the world is tooth enamel. So it kind of encapsulates that stuff. But I'm just saying, like, taxonomy is not the be-all, end-all of anything. I will say that in the new book, our taxonomic arrangement that we are going to have as far as species, subspecies, will not be the same as it was in the first edition.
Oh, God.
A couple of things you can probably already figure out. It's like there are a couple that are just not, if you look at taxonomy and what's a species is like a three-legged stool. And one of those, DNA is definitely one of those legs.
Mm-hmm.
And biogeography, are these things isolated? Are they interbreeding? Are they reproductively isolated? That's another thing. And are they phenotypically different? Do they look different? Are they bigger, smaller, lighter, darker? Are there physical differences to them structurally or anatomically or physically or whatever? And you look at all three of those things. And with some of these carpet python subspecies, you find like there's no appreciable difference genetically. And you also can't really say they're reproductively isolated either, really. So you really and if you have a one-legged stool, that shit falls over. It's like you really only got, it's a paint job difference. And it's like, well, if it's a paint job difference, that doesn't really belie any deeper, level of evolutionary change. I mean, I took yellow jungle carpets and made them into bright white jungle carpets in 7 generations.
Yeah.
Right. That's just some ding-a-ling snake keeper doing that. Like, it's like you make massive, like, I've got a lot of selective breeding projects. I can completely change the phenotype in 3 generations of any of this stuff. Like, I have the most insane tiger Darwin carpet starting with nothing. It's like it doesn't take long if you just focus on it. You can do that. Nature's really good at doing that. So if the difference is literally just the paint job, that's probably not enough, even in my opinion. I tend to be a splitter, honestly. So you have to compromise some things.
It's there's a couple thoughts that come to my head when you're saying that. One, like, we are like a tiny snapshot of evolution. Like right now, we're only seeing this little, snapshot of life and how it's evolving to where, something 60,000 years from now, maybe it's on its own trajectory to be a separate species or whatever. But like, I think sometimes we think like, oh, we figured it out, we're done. No,
that is another of the species concepts. There's a species concept called the evolutionary species concept that basically factors in like, okay, maybe these things aren't that different, but are they on their own separate evolutionary trajectory now? Are they essentially, they're not that different, but they are a young species. They are only recently diverged, but they're on their own. They've started diverging, and there's no reason to think they're ever going to come back together with this population. So the ship has sailed.
Right.
And using the evolutionary species concept, it gives you a lot more latitude in factoring in those other things.
Right.
Whereas the phylogenetic species concept really doesn't give you.
Right.
I am a big proponent of the evolutionary species concept because it takes into effect all of that stuff. A young species is still a species, in my opinion.
Right.
And the opinion of many others, I would think. It's
right.
The irony of a bunch of humans who are a young species arguing that there should be a young species. We're not Neanderthals, are we? But we're so genetically, we're so similar to them genetically that 5 to 10% of their genome still resides in living humans today. That's how close we are to them. But we are a young species.
Right.
And so for us to argue that you shouldn't count young species when we literally are one is kind of an insanity. But that's the argument people make. It's like I don't get it. It's
about the whole species things with carpets. It's so funny how, like, I remember when I first got into carpets, I was like this total morph guy and just crossing everything together and just like throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks. And now to come like full circle where I have no jags and I like natural looking carpets more than I like the morph stuff. And Owen has now become
starting to get the I don't understand
guy.
What happened.
He's producing ocelot jags and
dude, it's
caramel
crazy over here. He poison pilled me, man.
Nick
He's like, take all these jags.
Nick told me, like, one day you'll see the light.
Dear God.
One day you'll see the light. Yep. But
it's a natural progression. You start out, and the first thing that attracts you to carpets, or most people to most snakes, look at the ball python people, for example.
100%.
The flashy bright colors and the flashy paint jobs, and that is, And morphs provide a level of sort of instant gratification. It doesn't take very long to make morphs. And look, there it is. It's cutting. You don't have to chip away at it for 5 generations to make some cool selectively bred thing. You just like plug this male into here and boom, there you go. So that draws a lot of people in, but the people that stick with it, some small percentage of them, and you're in that group, it would seem, you eventually start to see past that and develop a deeper appreciation for the animals themselves. And you don't, is a granite a better looking snake than a normal popcorn carpet? No, it's a different looking popcorn carpet.
Yes.
It's better? No, it's neither good nor bad. It is only different. And it's
right.
And I think we got to, the carpet python community got to a point for a while there that I thought, in my estimation, seemed unhealthy. And that was that a lot of people had seemingly lost their appreciation for the natural beauty of what these things are supposed to look like.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's detrimental. And you look at the ultimate expression of that is the ball python community, because there's no bigger crime than having a normal ball python or producing. They literally.
Oh my God.
I heard you say that on another
but
podcast.
He's right.
And I was
He's
like,
right. Oh God.
If you feel you need to immediately kill a
Shun
percentage of
this
the offspring
man.
for the crime of being natural looking, you need to immediately sentence him to death to become cobra food for the crime of not having enough morphs. Like you probably crossed the line there. Like if you feel you need to kill a percentage of the offspring you produce, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
why are you
doing that? Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Stop doing that.
Jesus
like don't make. I mean, it's.
What's crazy?
Do not appreciate ball python's actually kind of a cool looking snake.
Yeah, I was just gonna say when I was a kid.
That at
Holy
all.
shit!
It's all morphs is the only thing they care about.
Right.
And that's the carpet python community has seemingly come back into a lot of. It's like you can enjoy morphs and also still enjoy wild type animals. You can have it both ways. You don't have 100%.
Yeah.
You can appreciate the natural beauty of a brown IJ. Yeah, there's an IJ again.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I gotta say that so people know what I'm talking about. I don't want to confuse people.
Right.
You can appreciate that and also have exanthic granites. Like you don't have to.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I think we need balance. It's like if you lose sight of what's made these things cool to begin with, you're kind of missing the whole point of it. It's like
I think for me, right, I think that the natural progression is you kind of, to your point, right, you see the flashy morph and you're like, wow, look at that, I mean, think about the first time we saw a jag, and you're like, wow, look at that, it's crazy, and then you start to work with them and breed them and trying to figure out how they work. And then you want to see them in the wild. And to me, once I saw them in the wild, it was like, oh, wow, now I'm seeing them in the setting that they're supposed to be in. Yeah. And now I understand why they look the way they look. And I have an appreciation for that natural look, because it's like you go from environment to environment and they just seamlessly blend into that environment. And there's such variety in carpet pythons. It's just, I mean, to me,
if ever there was a group of snakes that didn't need morphs at all, it's carpet python. They don't even need morphs. Like there's red ones, there's bluish ones, there's yellow ones, there's like everything you could imagine that already exists. Like
100%.
It's like, do you really even need more? I mean, I like morphs.
So do I.
All of that stuff. It's not, I like that stuff. But if you get to the point where that's the only thing, if it only has value if it has a bunch of mutant genes in it, and you can't appreciate it otherwise, then I think that's probably not a healthy sort of mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard you say on you were on the Gumbo podcast and you said something like, who hates normal ball pythons more than anybody? Ball python people. And I was like, oh my God, that's so great.
Yeah.
I accidentally ended up with a normal ball python a couple years ago. It was a Partho clutch.
Yeah.
It's 2 eggs made at distance. There was a Partho clutch. Pairing was like a super pastel lesser spot nose to a pastel Enchi Mojave, and there's a normal and a super Enchi, both females, neither of which is genetically possible given the parentage and everything. And I actually found a home for the female normal at an expo. Only reason I was able to find somebody to take it off my hands was because it had a weird story in that it didn't have a father, that it was a half clone, and thus that was interesting enough to where someone would take it off my hands.
Oh my God.
Right.
Like I was like, I'll just give this thing to the first kid that wants a pet snake.
Yeah.
I'll just And it was like, and it took till the second day of the expo.
Oh
It's
my
like,
goodness.
yeah, because there's no bigger crime in that community's eyes than the dreaded normal.
That's great.
That's great. They don't even make they don't even make normals as pets anymore. It's mostly like, yeah, if you're selling a pet, it's like, here's an albino you can buy as a pet. It's like, there's not even.
Well, the dirty secret is, and not much of a secret, is a lot of larger producers, the odd normals and low percentage possible hets that aren't worth much, they get sold as cobra food.
Yep.
Yeah.
They become feeder ball pythons. They don't like to talk about that because, we don't want to. We love our animals.
Cobras got to eat too.
I have a problem. I don't have much of a problem with it, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you got to eat.
Right.
I start all my baby black-headed pythons off on carpet pythons mostly. They're not live ones, not good ones. But if you produce 30, 40 clutches of carpets a year, you will always end up with, I know you guys know this, you always end up with a small number of stillborn, like full term, their egg tooth fell off, they drowned in the egg.
Yeah.
Right.
Died in the egg. You end up with a lot of that. And I just freeze all that stuff. And I just start all my blackheads off on half a carpet python each.
Yep.
And it works great. It's way more nutritious than a rat tail when you've got to because they take a while to get the hint about eating. And so my thought is like, at least then that life that should have got out of that egg and didn't went for something. Some good came of its existence and didn't just get thrown like garbage.
Right.
I don't feed live ones or anything like that. But I mean, you do end up with that. With me, I might end up with a dozen stillborn carpets a year.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a thing that happens. That another one of those things people don't talk about, but it happens to all of us. Yeah.
Very cool.
Don't
right, well,
appreciate natural stuff. That's the message.
That's right. All right, so we're winding up on 2 hours. Do you think?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it happens quickly.
I guess the question would be, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I have two questions. One would be, do you think that we'll see the Carpet Python book this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Shit.
All right. That's good.
Shit. All right.
I don't know. At this point, I'm confident no one's going to bang out a faster Carpet Python book. We're close to the finish line, so we'll give you a few more details, I guess. Hopefully Justin doesn't get pissed at me. But
it's us and everyone listening. So
the COVID delays getting our samples run, that really is the thing that's held this up we'd been done a year ago. But I really thought that was really, really important. I wanted to do something because the primary audience for this book already has the other edition of this book. So you have to find a reason to get people to buy the same book again. And the only way to do that is to make it not the same book again. It's got to have a lot of additional stuff. And I thought, what can we do? Because I thought we were pretty thorough the first time.
Yeah.
But how do you go beyond that and go even more hardcore? And it occurred to me that no one has ever run a full round of molecular testing on a species group for the sake of a reptile book. That stuff is only done in academia for papers, not just for some dingling's reptile book. Let's just do a complete DNA workup on all these snakes. No one's ever gone that far. So let's go that far. And I'm fortunate in that, Dr. Warren Booth, who, a good friend of the show, no doubt, and you guys know, is known Warren for years, great guy. And I was already working with Warren on some other stuff, some other more academic stuff. And he agreed graciously to run some samples for the book and to write a small phylogenetic chapter. So the book will have not just the results of those testings, but Warren will write an actual explanation of that data and everything. So it'll basically be what will amount to a small academic paper embedded inside of the book. Because I'm not qualified to analyze that data, so that will be, but that's a level that no one's really ever gone to before. So I thought that would be something cool.
Yeah.
Other big changes to the book structurally, aside from taxonomic arrangement, which will be a little different. There will be a jungle carpet chapter. There will be a popwood carpet chapter. These things are distinct things. Whether or not they get a name, that's a separate issue. They're a thing.
Right.
They don't stop. Popwood carpets don't become Darwin carpets if you synonymize them into variegata. They're still their own thing.
Right.
If you run the DNA of 5 popwood carpets and 5 Darwins, you will be able to put them into 2 piles looking only at their DNA every time. They will always cluster with each other. You're not going to confuse them at the molecular level. It's that the degree of difference is not that much. That it's very shallow diverge because they've only recently diverged. They haven't had enough time to wander off on a genetic drift to really to kick in. They are young in taxonomic terms. So there's that. Another thing is really a lot more of an emphasis on natural forms. I really want to hammer people with that. That people should appreciate natural beauty and the landscape and and the animals and all of it. So the species chapters, all of them will contain only wild animals. As you thumb through the jungle carpet chapter, it will be all wild snakes in the wild, doing wild snake stuff in the jungle. There will be not a single bright yellow jungle sitting in somebody's cage. There will be none of that. The chapters are. There's already was a lot of natural history in there. There's even more this time around. And it's really very much about what are these things doing in the wild? Where are they living? What are they doing? And here's a bunch of pictures of wild ones doing those things we were just talking about. And all the species chapters love that. The only captive snakes in the book are in the chapters dealing with the captivity. So when you're talking about husbandry and reproduction and those sorts of things, then obviously you have captive snakes and all of that in those chapters where it's appropriate. But a much greater emphasis on wild snakes, in situ wild snakes. I just want to illustrate think of like jungle carpets. There are some crazy variations of jungle carpets that bear no resemblance. People think jungle carpets are yellow and black, and you guys have been there. Yeah. And the one thing you can be confident you're not going to find is a bright yellow and black snake. Right. You'll find all kinds of things. You might find yellowish and black and brown. You might find all kinds of stuff. You're not going to find neon yellow and jet black. I mean, it's very unlikely to find that. So to really illustrate the breadth of what's out there, that's what we're trying to do. So not as many captive animals.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I like that.
But that's when you eventually that's where you end up just in your own headspace. The longer you're in it, it's like all the bright pretty snakes in a box. That's cool still, but it's like it does kind of eventually you start to, and I know you guys are the same way. You start to think about deeper sort of things, and you start to ponder the larger mysteries and why do they look different in these places? How they get to be in these places, and how long what separates this from over here, and what happened, and why are Darwin carpets not interbreeding with Cape York carpets anymore? Why are there no carpets of the Southern Gulf of Carpentaria?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, might explain that in the book. Why is there this gap where there's no carpets? Why is there no carpets on the Null Arbor Plain? Why is there a Null Arbor Plain? These sort of things.
These are all questions.
Well, these are.
Yeah, and then you start to see what's interesting. What's interesting is you start to see that happens with not just carpet pythons. You start to see some of those other species that are,
like that.
Yeah.
The same drivers that affect the evolution and speciation patterns in one group affect all the other things that are in those same habitats. If you look at, the partitioning of green pythons in New Guinea into 3 forms in New Guinea, or 2 in New Guinea and or 3 in New Guinea and 1 in Biak.
Right.
That partition arrangement of all these things are different. If you look at the taxonomy of cassowaries, it's exactly the same thing. It's the same. If you look at it, there's all manner of birds. There's a paper on crocodile skinks. It's the same thing, because those same evolutionary pressures, those same barriers to reproduction, to animal movement, affect everything in those habitats. So you'll see the same thing. The scrub python. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. It's all because they're all those same pressures are affecting all of those things that live in those places.
Yeah.
And so you see very, very similar speciation patterns.
Wow.
Which is why everything in New Guinea that's on north and south of the central mountain range in New Guinea, the north and south are different species. It's like that with everything.
Regardless of what it is.
Scrubs are different. The white lips are different. Everything's different. You know what's on both sides? Viper boas. You know what no one's ever bothered to test? Viper boas. And Candoya carinata are north and south. And I'll bet you they're going to be different.
Right.
But the Candoya taxonomy is a freaking hot mess of just nonsense too. So it's so did a little museum hopping with Warren and Ryan examining pickled snakes in jars, and we weren't looking for Candoya, but there's a lot of, because they occur in the same places as the things we were looking at, you kind of looked at them, and I have a bunch of Candoya. It's like, and you started like, this needs to get looked at seriously, because they're not immune to these same pressures. You know, if they're here and this other thing's here and these things are different species, these Candoya probably are too. But because they look similar, no one really delves deeper.
Okay.
If only there was a podcast with somebody that, you know, delved deeper into these things.
I know, right?
If only there was a podcast. I know a guy, but
I think we're past the if. It's just more the structural elements and the timeline.
There it is.
We're past. It's difficult. The podcast sort of sphere is pretty full. There's a lot of stuff out there now.
It ebbs and it flows. There's a bunch of them, and then everybody else finds something else better to do, and then there's a bunch of them, and then the constant is NPR.
You guys are survivors. Because you don't build an audience by doing something for 6 weeks. You build an audience by doing something for 10 years.
Yeah,
just keep popping away every week in and week out.
Yep.
Some shows are better than others, frankly.
Oh, yeah.
But you keep going. You keep grinding, and that reliability that you're always there.
It has aged us horribly.
You guys are so remarkably consistent in that's you built this audience because you are always there. When everybody else breaks out, finds something better to do, and can't be bothered to do it, you guys show up.
Yep.
I think the more and more I see podcasts, like I think it's great that there's more podcasts coming into the thing, but the more I see it, what's that?
Are they good though? Like I got to be honest. Like, I don't listen to podcasts, which is weird because I'm on them all the time.
Yeah,
I don't either.
I don't. And I consider you guys both good friends. I've known you for a million years, but I can honestly say I've never listened to a single episode of NPR. I don't. I've not ever listened to a full episode of any podcast ever, not once. I listened to one segment of Reptile Radio way back a million years ago with Eugene Bissett, only the Eugene Bissett part while I was driving to Seattle one time. I listened to like 20 minutes of a podcast 15 years ago. I don't even know why. I just can't seem to, I don't know. Like, if I'm zoning out, it's like never reptile stuff. I listen to I've gotten into Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast on cosmology and
science.
Stuff, I don't know. Maybe I should. So I don't know. I'm on these shows and I don't even know if they're good or not. I think the Reptile Gumbo would. I know that I keep people talk about it. I knew one of the hosts is Corey Martin, who I've known for a while, who's great. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But I don't really know. It does seem that when the market gets crowded, and if you consider this to be a marketplace of sorts, where you are competing for listeners, and it does seem when it gets crowded, though, I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to do a podcast that's the same as anybody else's podcast. If I can't do something that no one else is doing and bring something new to the table and come at it from a different way, with a fresh approach or something, then there's no point in me doing it, because if it's going to be the Call Up the Breeder of the Week podcast, there's a million people doing that, and they'll probably do it better than I would do it because I don't care about doing that. I'm not going to do it well, and there's a lot of that already around. If you want to listen to that, cool, but I don't want to do that. I want to do something that that's different and that I'm interested in. So that's been the struggle. So. Yeah. But it's coming. It's coming.
Don't you worry. It's coming. Yeah.
I do like this. Nobody listening can see this, but I got this sort of three-way partition of my monitor where I can see Eric and Owen, and they have way cooler microphones than I do.
Mine's garbage. He's got the good shit, and he won't.
I know, right?
He's supposed to buy me the upgrade with all the money.
I'm on the Howard Stern show here.
I know.
It's awesome. Got the sweet boom microphone.
That's right, man.
This crappy microphone on a webcam.
Yep.
I've tried not to be on camera. I actively not be on camera as much as possible, but I'm making my peace with that. And I kind of like this it might be cool to do it and have a video component or a video version of it available.
If
I can clean up well enough and make myself not look like a complete buffoon.
Some people tend to like the live stuff I do.
Because the topic I want to talk about, being able to throw up maps, charts, and diagrams would be useful. And you can't really explain a range map.
If you see that little share button down there, you can share. You see that little? I don't know if you guys can see the same thing, but if you look at the bottom of the screen, it says share screen.
Yeah,
you could put up that stuff
shit
and share all that stuff. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I like this setup. This is whatever I do, I know it's going to be something like, here's what I've got, and I'm going to send all the files to you, Lucas, and you can make this into something coherent. Yeah. And I'm out. Like, I got to go clean snakes. Like, here's some raw stuff, and weave that into something that makes sense.
That's why we have the interns. You know, that's yeah.
Yeah, like
I know, but somehow oddly,
now it's time. Like,
somehow oddly, I'm the one that does all the work
because you don't utilize the interns. I don't know what I'm doing. You don't use them.
Right? Like delegate. You gotta have protégés and stuff, and it's like gotta.
Yeah, I guess I gotta start delegating.
You do all the video editing and do all that stuff, the technical stuff, because I'm too old to learn new things. I'm so old now. I'm like, I'm not learning a new skill. No way.
No way. I just evolved with it, you know. Yeah. I mean, when we started NPR, it was hard to do a podcast, and now
I am completely analog. Like I am like the most analog. I had somebody, because PayPal keeps doing the thing where they close everybody's accounts for selling reptiles and this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that's a bit of a problem, a big problem of late. And I keep having people like ask me, well, do you take Zelle? I'm like, I don't even know what Zelle is. Because I'm like, it's like, do you not understand? I am a grown ass man. Like, I don't even know if I'd be allowed to use Zelle. I don't know what that even is. Like, does anybody over the age of 40 even know what Zelle is? Like,
I have no clue. I don't know.
I'm so flippin' old. I'll actually call your ass up on the phone and talk to you like a human. Like I can actually have a conversation with a person face to face still. Like I haven't lost that. Like I'm that of that age group where we talk to each other still.
You can't just secure a snake sale by sending me emojis of like $, snake, $.
I know. I know you know the frustration where you get these like people ask you about something and it's not even like, you know, the last Morph Market's the best because it's like
oh god, it's
the lowest common denominator of everything. But I got a few months ago, I got somebody that wanted a snake or wanted to ask some questions about a snake, and they sent me a message that was just 3 words: "What's best price?"
Holy crap! Holy crap!
Punctuation. What's best price? Neglected to even mention what snake they were talking about. You can kind of figure out by what they were replying to. What's best price? And I'm like, dude, you're short 2 nouns and a verb. I'm not even going to respond to this. If you don't even have enough respect for the way I do or mean to use a complete sentence, like I'm not even.
Well, I just don't even respond. Because if you don't respond to that crap, they eventually send you a message like, "Hey, you haven't responded to so and so's thing." I'm like, "Yeah, I know I didn't. I didn't want to."
I'm so glad.
Like, I don't think I can help you. You should buy a snake from somebody else.
I had somebody actually name drop you because I was not responding fast enough. So they were like, "Well, screw this. I'm just going to go to Nick Mutton." And I'm like, "Tell him I said hi." Like it was just like
they probably didn't come to me.
Of course not. It's like
I'm the guy people love to buy snakes I produced from other people.
And
then they love to email me about it. Like the number of I don't does not go by where I'm like, "Hey, I got this snake that you produced." It's like, and then they want to just pump me for a bunch of information. It's like you don't buy a car off a used car lot and then call the Chevy dealership to answer the questions. Like, that's not cool.
Hey, how was this car? What was this car been through? I don't know.
Probably 6 times out of 10, it's not even a snake I actually produced. It's like they just said that.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah. Have you? This has happened to me multiple times. Yeah. So I had somebody. They're like, "Hey, I bought this albino Darwin, and they said it was produced by you. I was wondering if you could give me the lineage." I was like, "Well, I've never produced albino Darwin."
So there you go. It's my lineage.
You got me confused with somebody else.
Jesus.
I have on 2 occasions seen Nick Mutton line jungle jags for sale. So I've also seen Nick Mutton line diamond pythons, which I've never actually bred diamond pythons at all.
Oh my god.
That's not even a thing. Like I had one just literally 2 days ago. This happened. It was like, hey, I got this snake from Michael Miller. Remember that guy?
Oh God!
Yeah. And he bought it from this guy years ago, and it's one I produced. And it was like, wanted to know what it was, and it's wanted me to spend several hours figuring everything out that I ever sold to Michael Miller. And I'm such a dumbass. I did. I sat there for an hour and went through every record I had from 2013 to 2017.
Dear God.
That's literally probably 1,500 snakes. But I have every picture of every single snake I produce and its reference number and its ancestry and who I sold it to. And I never sold the snake to Michael Miller. Oh, we said it was like a jungle coastal. It's like, you could have led with that. Like,
like you saved me a lot of time here.
It's like, what are you doing? It's like it was a coastal Darwin. It's like, yeah, it's obviously it looked kind of Darwin-y. I'm like, well, maybe it's a Darwin. I don't know. Like, back on this fool's errand. Like, I never sold that snake to him.
Right.
God. It wasn't one of mine at all. But thanks for. I'll never get those 2 hours back.
Yeah, I've slowly learned over the past couple of years that I do not like selling snakes, because I deal with that shit at work all day long with people being upset about things and thinking I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is the customer is not always right. Like, especially if they're not even the customer. Like, that's like,
Yeah. 100%.
I guess, like, if you buy a snake from me, I will bend over backwards, tell you whatever you want. You can call me up 9 years later and ask me some crazy question. I'll figure it out for you. It's when you didn't even buy the snake from me, but you want me to do that, like...
That's a little... That's a little... Yeah.
I bought this snake from your competitor to save $5, but now I'd like you to provide customer service for the snake I got from Triple L Reptile at the Expo.
Did they name drop to you on the deli cup? Yeah, okay.
That literally happened. I was like the biggest show in the Northwest in Seattle, a town called Puyallup, and I have this giant double end cap booth, and the next one down is Triple L has like this giant end cap booth, and they had 5 carpet pythons and deli cups in stacks. They were all obviously coastal Papuan mixes of some sort, and they were 5 snakes labeled as 3 things. One was labeled as a coastal, one was labeled as a jungle, one was labeled as a Papuan, and the other was just labeled as carpet pythons generically. But they were all obviously from the same clutch.
Same clutch, yeah. All same size, all kind of look alike, yeah.
That's a pretty typical thing to see at a show anyway. But
yeah.
This guy 2 hours of my day just asking me every question you could possibly, like every bit of knowledge I could possibly have about carpet pythons, he sucked out of me. Every single thing.
Wow.
Walked over and bought one from Triple L Reptile because it was $10 less. Didn't even ask me if I'd taken $10 less. I probably would have.
Right.
Bought that, and then tried to get out the door without me seeing him, kind of going around. I see him like skulking out. Called me 2 weeks later when it wouldn't eat, wanted me to tell him how to get it to eat. I'm like, I talked to you a lot at the expo a couple weeks ago and everything about carpet pythons. And hey, it's like, it's the one you bought from Triple L Reptile and snuck out the door?
Call them.
It's like, I can't tell you a lot about that. You're probably going to have to call them, and that's probably not going to go very well. But
yeah, they'll give you a discount on the next one you buy. So
it's kind of like Owen and I, if only there was a podcast that focused on carpet pythons that's been going on for 10
I've
years.
said that.
And you'll get people that'll like contact you and you're like, hey, could you tell me about this? And I will send them a link to a show. I'll say, oh, listen to this. And they're like,
can you just tell me?
Can you just tell me? And I'm like,
I just fucking did.
And I'm like, oh, no,
I can't tell you.
Cannot.
No, sorry, I can't.
No. I get that all the freaking time.
I'm sure you do.
And I literally wrote a book on this stuff. I tell people, and this was in years when you could still get it. I'm like, there's this great book that ansers all that stuff. You should totally pick that up.
Yeah, right.
Not even mentioning that I wrote it or anything as one of their authors.
God.
It's like, I saw that book. That's really expensive. And then I've had 2 people ask me, like, do you know, is there anywhere I could just download a copy of it? Like, I've had 2 people ask me where they could pirate a copy.
Can I steal your book? Oh, yeah, sure.
Which my answer was like, actually, no, there is no digital copy of it. It doesn't exist because when I had to sign the contract to write the book, I wouldn't sign that clause to stop it so there wouldn't be an audio version of it just because
Jesus.
Well,
oh my God, yeah.
we do have
several chapters done by Nipper.
The natural history section. Nipper said, because I made something on the show, right? And he was kind of like, I think I asked you guys a while back if it was cool if I put it on the Christmas show. Yeah, so I was like, man, it would be cool if the Carpet Python book was in an audio book. So then in my email, Nipper sends me in his nice English accent, hello, mate. How are you today?
The natural history chapter.
The complete Bretto Python, and it was just a joke that he sent to me. And I was like, oh, this is great. Now I can listen in my car.
You got the entire natural history chapter
don't worry,
done
Nick,
by a British
I bought
guy.
3 copies of the book. They're right there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I have 3.
I didn't even have a good one.
I have the one that all 3 you guys signed. That was the original one, and then I lent that to Matt, and I was afraid that he had that for so long that I wanted to read it again. So I got another one, and then I got one that I was going to auction off at a Carpet Fest, and
my
everybody had
copy is all beat up. It's one I sent to a guy in Hong Kong, and it never showed up. And like a month went by, and it wasn't there. He's like, "Really? It's not there? It was lost. They got lost in the mail."
All right.
And so I sent him out a replacement, and he got that one just fine. And like 3 months later, like 4 months after I sent this book out, it showed back up at my house. And it had made it all the way to China. There was like all these crazy Chinese stamps all over it.
Right.
And it made it there. They couldn't figure out how to deliver it, and they sent it all the way back. And it was kind of beat up. The corners all kind of mushed from getting tossed around for months and months and months.
Right.
But that's my reference copy if I need to. When you need, like, when you're writing in the second edition, you're like, what did I say the first time?
I should probably check that.
Yep.
Honestly, like the files that when you write a book like that, or how we do it anyway, it's like all these different documents, each chapter or section is a different document, and then you kind of weld them all together towards the end. But they evolve, and like I'll write the first pass of the Morph chapter, and then I'll send that to Justin, and he'll scribble out half the stuff I wrote and write it in red ink and then write a bunch of other stuff. And I'll say, screw that, and I'll scribble out a bunch of his stuff, and I'll accept some of it. And he goes back and forth 4 or 5 times until everybody's happy with it or nobody's happy with it, and then you're done.
Right.
But each round of revisions, the amount of red ink keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and
right.
And the amount of insertions of new stuff gets smaller and smaller until eventually there's nothing. You're just checking spelling at that point, and you're done.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a lot of work. You should write a book.
No.
I highly recommend it. Like who else is going to do it? Like,
Eric's going to write his Adventures of like Australia book, and then I'll have a children's pop-up book that'll go with it. Like,
Yeah.
You know what's wrong with that's not the pop-up book is a shitty idea.
All right.
Like that's not. Like, if I could encourage anybody to do anything, it'd be get your ass off your couch, get out into the world, and go herping, out of the country. Go find this stuff. It's so exhilarating. It's so life-affirming and awesome. And most people don't know. Most people lead these quiet lives of just like, I don't know, like anonymity, and I don't know. They never really have any grand adventures in their lives, and that's sad. Like, you need to get out and have some real proper adventures. And do this stuff and find these snakes if that's what you're into, and do that and eat the crazy food and find the crazy snake, and maybe you don't sleep for 3 days and have that. What a shame it would be to get to the end of your life and have accumulated no good stories at all.
Yeah. Like,
see that. So writing a book like it's a kind of a memoir, travelogue sort of book about herping adventures with like a reptile slant to it that would encourage people and hopefully inspire people to get out there. And nobody gets out of this world alive. Like nobody gets out of this alive. Like, that's it. Like, we're here for a finite and very fleeting period of time. And what a shame to waste it all and never have any adventure and never do anything grand. Have these grand, get some of your buddies and go on this grand adventure halfway around the world. What a shame it would be to not ever do that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not a bad idea to write. You don't have to be like a 1,000-page book, but write something that would be try to inspire people to like grab life by the balls, get out there and do something.
Yeah.
And
I have 2 chapters. Here's my regret. I have 2 chapters kind of written of the stories. I mean, when we found the Owen Pelly Python, I was like, I have to do this now. I mean, come on, I mean, like, this is like, this is it. But my regret is not doing it sooner. I remember you telling me for years that I should get to Australia. What are you doing? Stop buying the snakes, spend the money on this.
Yeah,
to try to get me to go a couple
times. Both of you guys a couple of times.
Yeah. That's my biggest regret.
Yep.
Biggest regret. So I cannot wait until they open. I'm telling you, man, I'm probably going to go twice a year for a couple years because that's something I want to do. I think I don't know if anybody will read it.
Consider writing a small book about it or something.
Yeah,
I am.
Yeah. Little by little, as time goes on, you accumulate more adventures and have more cool stories.
Yeah, 100%.
So as a deadline per se, but that's a cool thing there's a book that doesn't really exist. Or not ebooks.
Well, it's sort of like what you're saying about the podcast, right? I mean, you and Justin have wrote the book on carpet pythons. So what can I do? How can I show my love of this species or this, complex of snakes? And I'm like, well, here's an idea. We're having such good times and all these stories that happen. And, it's funny. You look on Facebook, look at Chris Salemi, right? He posted up this memory and it's me sleeping in the chair on the way back coming from Australia.
Back from Australia. Yep.
And I totally forgot, right? There was this guy at the airport, right? And I'm sure because you're on here, Chris is going to listen to this, but there was this guy at the airport, he thought that he had the very first. So me and Chris were stuck in Texas on this layover for 13 hours. And as we're sitting there, this old guy comes up to us, this hippie dude, and he's like, it's like he has the first iPhone ever. Nobody else has a phone, and he's showing us every single picture in his phone that he took. He's like, look at this, man. I can't believe that this phone took this picture. Look, I mean, I can zoom in and see the bird that I took. And me and Chris are just like, yeah, man. Okay,
looks
cool.
Nice, dude. Yeah.
We got one of them too. He thought he had something that nobody else had, but
the craziest people my first trip to Australia was in the Alice Springs airport, and there was a guy waiting for a flight. He's on the same flight, and he was an Aboriginal Australian Elvis impersonator. True story.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's great. He performed under the name of Black Elvis, and he had the late Vegas era Elvis, the big rhinestone studded glasses,
the mutton chop.
The whole getup too.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my God. So I got me and a buddy. We got a picture. We're hanging out.
Yeah.
We got a picture with.
Yeah, why not, dude?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Shit, man.
The things that the crazy shit that happens on those trips that
oh, it's great.
Become the funniest things ever later, but they're not funny at all at the time.
Right.
That last trip up the Cape York Peninsula, we blew out a tire halfway up the Cape. And destroyed the rim too. The rim was bent. It's
God.
Not in an appropriately equipped vehicle for what we were trying to do. So we were on a bald ass spare. We said, well, let's just press on all the way up anyway. And then all the way back down. And we got all the way back. And then we decided the second to last night, we're trying to get around the Palmerston area to go look for jungle carpets. And there's this scenic loop that's through the rainforest where the rainforest has grown over the road. And you're just driving through a green tunnel in the dark. And there's branches and shit in the road. You got to move out of the way sometimes. And Chris kept saying, Salemi just kept saying, this is a bad idea. We don't have another tire. This is a bad idea. And he was on he wanted to be on the record that this was a bad idea. And it was a bad idea.
Got it.
We ran over a fallen tree branch thing and blew out the last tire. So we're there at 2:00 in the morning, middle of fucking nowhere with a blown out tire and no spare. And we have to get on a plane the next night. And we have a few hundred kilometers we need to cover too. Mm. And back up on a flat tire in reverse, back out for a half an hour of walking on foot. And I'm just walking with Chris, and that man had murder in his eyes. You didn't speak. He was just he was just not. He's like, if anybody talks to Chris, he's gonna freaking stab somebody. He's so pissed. Just beyond all words, that dead stare in his face, don't even talk to me. And he just walked. And we're just walking in utter silence. And then we got back. I had to climb up this mountain thing to get to the top or the high area where our Australian friend who was with us could get a cell phone signal and call the Australian equivalent of AAA. And that guy showed up as the sun was coming up.
Oh God!
We did get it squared away, and we made it. We had to go out and go scuba diving. We made it to the boat, but we didn't sleep at all that night, like at all. Like it was all night getting the car going. Pulled up just in time for the boat left, got on the boat, and went out and went diving with no sleep whatsoever. Yeah,
that's awesome. I know that face. I know that face that Chris gives.
Oh my God! Like I was like he's gonna absolutely like. Steven's gonna say something, however innocent, and he's gonna shank him. He's gonna. It's
not a good trip unless there's at least one attempted murder. You know.
Yeah, it is. Did you guys? I assume you experienced that phenomenon where everybody at some point wants to kill everybody else in the car.
We were, I mean, we had those moments. I was in a fever dream for the first half of the trip because I was sick as a dog, but I refused to like not go. So like these three assholes were at one place and they climbed the mountain and they're up at the top of the mountain watching my ass wander in circles because that's all I'm doing. And they're like, there he is. He's safe.
Owen was friends with this wallaby and it looked like he was having like we're on where were we at? Erlangi,
It was at Erlangi, yeah. And I'm out of it on cough medicine because I'm just wandering in circles. Yeah.
You're not supposed to live in a car shoulder to shoulder with other people for days and days on
end.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Eventually you snap. Like we were in Western Australia, it's me, Ryan Young, my friend Mark Goyer, and we were in Perth on like our last day there. And there's like a park with this huge wetland area. There's snakes, tons of snakes and skinks and reptiles all around this area. Tiger snakes, dugites, all sorts of elapids. We found a ton of them. But we were getting there and we were meeting up with our two Australian friends. And there was some debate as to which parking lot we were supposed to meet them in or where. And that just erupted. And I just like got out of a car that was still moving. I was so pissed. It made no sense. I still don't actually know why. I'm like, God damn it, fuck this up. Let me out of the car. I got out and walked around this wetland area for like an hour by myself looking at snakes. It's just like I was just like I had to get out of the car. I was gonna. It made no sense. It was like I think it's supposed to be the parking lot over there. I think it's supposed to be over here. Like, and I just lost my just completely.
It's like zoop.
Everybody on that trip.
Everybody's
like,
got to go.
Point, like,
yep.
I thought Steven was gonna cry or kill somebody at one point on the Cape York trip. He just snapped. Like we flipped him shit one too many times, and it was just like he just lost it.
Thought Eric was gonna smother me with a pillow.
Everybody.
Yep.
Like it would have been
actually. Yeah. On the Northern Territory trip, I don't think we really had any, except for you being sick, Owen. But other than that
was just fun. I mean, yeah, because they left me at the hotel the one day too. They were just like, they left me because when you had to go get your phone, you left me and at the hotel because you guys are all tired of dealing with it. So yeah. I mean, you stay here.
That the story with the phone alone, it's like
is enough.
So when we were at Erlangi, just out of nowhere, like you've been there, Nick, right? So there's like nobody there. You know, I mean, there's like nobody there, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these three German people just show up, and we're like, "What the hell is going on?
Where did you people come from?" Yeah, and they pose for one picture, and then
will you take a picture for me?
And they just, but it's like we didn't see them again on the trail. They like dissolved back into the ether, and. Then after
there was no car there. They didn't have a car.
No idea where these people came from. Yep.
No, man, it was nuts. Yeah. It's crazy.
Shit.
But anyhow.
Chronicle all that stuff. Well, it's just the crazy adventures you have, the unexpected things that you find crossing the road in the middle of the night, the things you didn't expect to be blown away by. Like, out in remote Western Australia, like there's one I was like, oh my God, I realized I can see the entire Milky Way galaxy, the entire spiral arm of the galaxy going at an angle because there's no light pollution at all because you are a million miles from any human civilization at all, and you can see all this stuff. It was glorious.
I call that my realization that we're all just monkeys floating on a rock through space.
Arguing about it too. That's like
you're just like, oh wow. Okay.
There's more to this when you ponder that, and it's like
it's amazing. Yeah. So anyway, that's my book idea. So hopefully,
you should completely. You need to do that. That's just like be a memoir of sorts. But yeah, I think people need to embrace it and get out there. It's so, I don't know, it changes who you are, it changes your outlook, it changes your perspective on life and your own place in the universe and everything.
100%.
And some people never do that.
Mm-hmm.
You get a whole new appreciation for the, I think I think for me, right, it was the first year I produced Gelatin Jungles. I go to Gelatin, I'm in Gelatin, I'm on the road, I find 2 of them, like my very first carpet pythons, and then to come home and have them hatching out in my snake room, to me, just like totally changed.
Honestly, I think carpets are easy to find in Gelatin because I found a few too. Like it seems like if you get yourself there, they're around.
Yeah.
They seem to be pretty locally abundant, thankfully.
No,
it's the greatest thing you can do. I think more people need to do it, so you should inspire them. Go out and seize the day.
Right on.
Carpe diem.
Exactly. All right. I guess we'll jump off, and obviously, if people, throw your
website out, all that fun
find
stuff.
But, at this point, if they don't know who you are,
what the fuck are we doing here?
All the time. So
been around a minute, yeah.
Yep.
InlandReptile.com.
There you go.
Done.
I have the only up-to-date website in all of herpetoculture.
Oh shit! So, I have to update mine.
The only website availability page that's actually accurate.
Yeah, that reminds me. I have to do that this
because
weekend.
No one else does. No one believes that mine is. So is this still available? Is this still available? It's like
yes, God damn it!
It's like
I think I've done that to you a couple times.
Yeah.
If it's on there, I still got it. Like that's why it's on there. Like I'm good about that at least.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah, well, if you're looking for carpet pythons, that's the guy. You want to definitely check out what Nick has, because you'll get lineage, you'll get, you'll be able to call him anytime. I can't say enough good things about him. Majority of my collection really came from Nick or Paul. Really, that's where it comes from. Nick, Paul, or Justin. So
we'll be in touch, Eric, about the podcast thing. I did.
Okay.
I think this should be behind the scenes or anything. I did talk to Ryan about jumping on there with me, at least.
Sweet.
On occasion, because some of these things that I think work better rather than one person just discussing the ramifications and nuances of something, like having a dialogue and with another person that's equally well versed in that, and you're discussing aspects of it and everything. And Ryan is probably the best person I know. I've known Ryan since the 90s, and he's local. Like, we live about an hour apart now. But I've known him since he was literally like 20 or 19 years old. I've known him since he was a kid. And I'm only a few years older than him, but since we were both very much hobbyists, I've known him a long time. So our ideologically and our interests are very strongly aligned.
Right.
We come up together in the business and the hobby and stuff. So I think he'd be a good person and he knows a lot of stuff.
Cool.
That would be excellent. I would listen to that every week, no doubt. Even if I'm editing, I'm still going to listen.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yep.
I don't know how to edit anything, and I don't want to learn. I don't want to do
that. Why we have interns. Yeah, just
I am a pro.
I'm gonna generate some files that I send to some people.
Done.
And those people can make a thing out of that stuff.
That's all that needs to happen.
Here's the thing now, Nick. You don't even have to send it. You just log into this.
And when you're done hitting record,
it's there.
It does it for us.
I go and I download it and get all you
have to do is push buttons.
That's it.
Yeah.
You just have to show up.
I know.
But yeah, we'll definitely chat about that. And we'll get
a better camera, because I'm looking at you guys look crystal clear and I look like crap.
I'm just running it off my computer, but if Nick gets a better microphone before I do, I will riot. You understand me?
I know. I have to get the microphone. I have to get your
daddy-sized microphone ever, like comically large,
like gold,
like a 1940s radio show performer. Like
on a
stand.
The
microphone that George Clooney was singing into in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Done.
Like, on that microphone.
There you go.
Constant sorrow. That microphone, the boss microphone.
Yes.
Perfect.
Very good.
Perfect.
We'll figure out the details, man. It's good talking to you guys as always.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Nick. All right. See ya. All right, Owen, you want to? We'll just real quick run down. Okay, if you want to get in touch with us, MoreliaPythonRadio.com. If you want to send us an email, info@MoreliaPythonRadio.com is where you can do that. Follow us on Instagram under MPR Network is where we're at. So you can see all the podcasts that we have going on, and hopefully sometime soon Nick will be joining the ranks, and if Ryan Young's with him, like
once again we're like,
we got the heavy hitters.
Well, we do this
NPR
thing.
Network,
dude. Coming. I mean, we already have. I mean, I love how we do the thing.
We got Julander.
Yeah.
We got
Chuck. We got Nick. We're getting Ryan. We got. Oh no, we can't talk about the other one yet. Can we?
Yeah, we can.
We can.
Yeah.
All right. We got Loafman
and Matt Most.
Yeah, we got those.
Yeah, man.
And then it's us two chuckleheads running around here doing whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know how we got.
Why the fuck are we still here? I mean, like it. Eventually, eventually, the smarter people and the more advanced people will riot and overthrow us. Until then, we are still in charge at the NPR network.
This is true.
I told you we must rule with an iron fist, or they will come for us.
We have international shows as well. We have the Australian Herp,
and half of your podcast with Nipper. That's international, kind of.
Yeah.
Nipper counts as his own.
By the way, Marco Shea
no.
should be coming. Should be coming.
Please put that out and listen to the hell out of that.
Oh my god!
No, I don't want him on.
I'm gonna no.
I don't want him on.
I'm gonna send you. You get to hear the raw file.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll listen to the podcast or whatever, but you need to hear the raw file.
I'm not sure if I'm okay with him coming on the show though, dude. Like it's gonna be bad.
Hello, sir.
I'm gonna wear a suit. Like it's gonna be
hello.
No one else will see but me and you and him. But oh god.
Owen, ask the opening questions.
I can't. I don't remember who's Owen.
How do I start this?
I don't know what's going on. I mean, no.
Yeah, that'll happen, no doubt.
Alrighty.
All right. What else?
Teespring store. Go to the Teespring store. Go to the Teespring store to get all this cool shit, NPR shit, Morelia, Carpet Fest stuff, EB Morelia stuff, Rogue Reptile stuff. It's all in the Teespring store. You can purchase everything. Also, go to the Patreon page, and if you join the Inland tier, you'll get invites to the monthly roundtable or whatever we're going to call it with me, Lucas, Riley, and Eric, where we discuss whatever it is you want to talk about, however much you want to talk about it. It's usually a lot of fun, pretty laid back. Also, go over and like all the different podcasts that we have on the NPR network and tune in to all of them that you're interested in. You might learn something about stuff that you never even thought possible. Eric's on a crazy monitor kick right now. It's weird.
This is true.
I am obsessing over Argentine boas. What is happening? Like
the world is
what is going on?
No.
How did we get here? So there's that. I think that's pretty much it. You're EB Morelia. I'm Rogue Reptiles. You can find EB Morelia on a ton of different platforms. You've got Rogue Reptiles on Facebook and Instagram. At this point, you people should have been listening for this long. I mean, you know where to find us. Please go like and subscribe to all our different social medias because we usually post up little things from our own stuff and then stuff we do together. That's it. So we'll say thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch everybody back here next week for some more Morelia Python Radio. Good night.